All right, everybody, here we go. Today is Wednesday, Hump Day, July 1st, 2026. My name is Rob Carter. Welcome to the future, number one radio slash podcast in America. As you can see, Isaiah is out. He is tending to family business. I had to put this thing together today. I'm starting to learn the tech. It's very exciting. On the show at 9:30, we're going to have Missouri House Rep candidate Jeffrey Jacks. We're going to talk about the amendments. A4, A5. He might get into A3. I'm going to talk about, just the topics that are important to everybody around the country, but particularly in Missouri. We'll have House Rep Jeffrey Jacks on at 9:30, and then just recently, as everybody start to join in, please like and share, like and share, like and share. If you don't mind, please like and share. We were at an Osage Republican meeting, I guess you could call it, and several candidates got up and spoke, and one caught my attention. His name is Brad Patty, 25 years in the military. I thought his speech was very sober, and I thought it was right on target. He's new to politics. He's running for U.S. House Rep. He'll be going up against several people. I think Rick Bratton is. But I liked what Brad Patty had to say. I talked to him a little bit afterwards. We interviewed him, and I just got a good vibe about Brad Patty. So I said, if you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome. He reached out, said, let's do it. So we'll have Brad Patty on today at 11 a.m. So Jeffrey Jacks at 9:30, Brad Patty at 11. We were going to have Jake Jackson on at 10:30. He is not feeling well, so he is not on today. So we'll have those two candidates on. We'll talk about Missouri politics, things that are going on in the world, and get a flavor for what these guys feel about the amendments, especially 4 and 5, because there seems to be a lot of conversation about Amendment 5 in the state of Missouri, and I am curious where the Republican Party sits on it. We'll get some Democrats on before too long. We'll get Elad Gross and maybe some Democrat candidates on to see what they have to say about it. I'm undecided. I understand both points of view. I do understand where the grassroots are coming from because that's really where my heart is at, and they just do not trust the language in Amendment 5. So we'll break it down again today, as I said, with Jeffrey Jacks and Brad Patty. Name of the show today, what we titled it is Injustice for All. So before we get to Jeff Jacks, I just want to bring a couple things to your attention. I have been talking about it for a long time. I want to see if you guys agree out there in the audience. We'll look at let me get my comments up and running here. Why am I not seeing them? Hang on. There we go. Now I can see the comments. Good morning, everyone. It doesn't feel like there's justice anymore. One of the cornerstones of American life is that we believed we had a robust justice system, that you could take your grievances to court, you could take your grievances to the government, and there would be some resolution if you were in the right. People have been talking to me for a long time saying, Rob, it's not justice like you think it is. Law does not mean justice. Just because we have laws doesn't mean the establishment will follow those laws or apply them to you equally. And I hate to say that because it's a bummer to think that way. At least it is for me. But the one case here in Missouri, and there's many, I'm going to get to all of them. We talked to Crystal Umphris. She was on the show once before. There's 3 other people that want me to get their stories out, and I just haven't been able to because some of those people don't want to come on. They want me to cover the story, but they want to come on, and I can't do it that way. They have to talk to me, and they have to come on the show. But it doesn't feel like there's justice. Jeffrey Winehouse, that's an easy one. We talk about that pretty much every day. If you're hearing the show for the first time, if you're going through Rumble or you're going through YouTube, here's a guy that was an independent journalist they tried to assassinate this man. Trumped up charges, what I would consider just absolutely suspect, warrantless, a warrant search on his home because they said they smelled marijuana, but the whole thing is just absurd with Jeffrey Winehouse. And yet, no justice. Nobody will help this man, no justice whatsoever. And as I look around all of the issues that we've been talking about, it seems like there's just no justice anywhere you look. And I wonder if people see it that way. I wonder if people are starting to recognize that, if they think that I'm crazy. I'll start with the COVID con job. I want to lay out the COVID con job one more time because Rand Paul, he's a libertarian. Most people who are on the libertarian bent like Rand Paul. He's been going after Dr. Darth Fauci for quite some time. But when we were talking to Rhino Watch, the Missouri Rhino Watch guy yesterday, Josh Lehman, He said, they try to create false arguments so that you get into an argument, but it's not the argument you should be paying attention to. 100% agree. That is what I'm starting to recognize. And now I'm seeing it with Rand Paul. And I guess you got to ask the question, is Rand Paul somebody who is looking for justice in America? Is Rand Paul what we think he is? A lot of people on the libertarian side think that Rand Paul is great. He's the son of Ron Paul. And I think there was a lot of Ron Paul followers back in the day. If they're still not paying attention to him, he's got a podcast out there that you can watch. And he speaks about the same things that I do for the most part. But Ron Paul was the guy that said, audit the Fed. You got to audit the Fed. In order to get down to what's going down or what's going wrong with the country, you have to audit the Fed. Where does the money start? How is currency being manipulated in this country? That's Ron Paul. His son, Rand Paul from Kentucky, has been all over Dr. Darth Fauci, but he's not getting down to what really happened with COVID. COVID, as I have said from day one. Now, this isn't somebody who came along. I'm not somebody who came along recently. I've been following COVID from before you ever heard of COVID. I've been following that story before the American people even knew the term COVID. They didn't even know what it was. And I said from the very start all the way until today, it was a planned and orchestrated event. It was to strip you of your liberties. It was to take money from you and give it to Wall Street. It was to inject you with an experimental genetic therapy that had a safety record that was not safe. And you had both political parties and the media selling it to you, not just in this country, but around the world. It was a global con job. A global con job. And why is nobody paying attention to it? It's kind of like the elections. You know these things are out there, but nobody's paying attention to the most important issues of the day. And why is that? And what kind of questions should we be asking? I say that we pay attention to Rand Paul here for just a minute. Let me play this clip. This is Rand Paul. And what you're going to see Rand Paul do, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if Rand Paul could just, he's a doctor. He's been in politics for a long time. Maybe he just doesn't understand that COVID was a con job. Maybe he really believes, despite all of the 10,000 mountains of evidence, that what was killing people wasn't COVID. It was the protocols to cure COVID. That's what was killing people. The exact same game plan that they used for AIDS. Same thing. Same rollout, same fear tactics, same hysteria, same playbook as AIDS. Same person behind it, Dr. Darth Fauci. All right, let me play this. It's clip number 2. Let me get this up because I don't have Isaiah today, so I got to find a different method to get these clips out to you. But let me get this going. Where am I at here? Let's do this right here. So this is Rand Paul speaking about Dr. Darth Fauci. And then I want to lay out what he's doing versus the realities of the situation. Rand Paul on Dr. Darth Fauci. Check this out.
This was a conspiracy. This was a cover-up, and he has not really gotten his just desserts on this. And we want to make sure that the American public and that history records that he was involved with funding this dangerous research that led to a pandemic that killed 15 million people. There needs to be repercussions.
Real time, uncensored, unstoppable.
Rand Paul clip first. Here's Rand Paul talking.
Has been very cooperative, particularly Secretary Kennedy. They've turned over virtually everything. And what we now know beyond a reasonable doubt is that Anthony Fauci did indeed fund gain-of-function research. We have the evidence that the experiments were gaining in function. The viruses were becoming more lethal, more attachable to human cells, and more infectious.
Now, what bothers me about this is he's on Fox News. That's number one. That bothers me, number one. Because if you were trying to get out of the box that we find our country in, you would ignore Fox News. You would call out Fox News for their misrepresentation of what the realities of the world are. You got to remember, Fox News is the one who paid $787 million to Dominion, despite the fact that they knew they were in the right. So that should tell you, again, these are tells, right? If you're playing poker, you look at these and go, well, why would they pay $700? You don't think you could put on a proper defense with $787 million to expose what Dominion and the electronic voting machines were doing? You don't think that's possible? You think that they had to come up with some scheme to go, you know what, we'll just settle for almost $1 billion with Dominion. And many people in my world, politicians included, high-ranking politicians, say there was no money transfer of $787 million. It was just a narrative, a story to scare off everybody from talking about it. And I agree with that. So going on Fox News, who did not really detail out the elections, who has Sean Hannity in a key role, who's just an absolute propagandist, and people who push war 24 hours, 7 days a week with never giving the other side any air whatsoever to explain why these wars are not only unconstitutional, but not in the best interest of American citizens. That is Fox News. Anybody that makes a living going on Fox News as a Republican, you should raise your eyebrows at. Fact. Should not be going on those stations. That's number one. Number two, he's going to tell you how dangerous COVID was. And I want to give you firsthand experience. Again, I have allergies and asthma. I've had them since I was in my late teens, early 20s. I've been hospitalized for it multiple different times because my lungs get so clogged up I can barely breathe. I've had sinus surgery twice. I am the person that if COVID, and I was in my 50s at this time when this all went down, late 40s, early 50s, when COVID was spreading all across America, I did not wear a mask. I did not take medicine. I traveled on planes, buses, automobiles, everything. Stayed at hotels, stayed in crowds, went everywhere, never even acknowledged that COVID was a thing, and had no problem whatsoever. Now, when the media was telling you that everybody was going to die, and if you didn't have 2 masks on, a helmet, bubble wrap, flippers, that you were going to die from COVID. And if you didn't get the vaccines, you were going to kill your grandmother or coworkers or people out in public. You were a super spreader getting ready to kill everybody. So having said that, I came in contact, Rob Carter, came in contact with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of people that I knew. They didn't take the vaccines, the vast majority of them. None of us got sick. It was total nonsense, total and complete nonsense. Why is Rand Paul not recognizing that? Why is Rand Paul trying to deflect from the idea that this is a planned event, Event 201? Anybody can watch it right now. Why is Rand Paul trying to deflect from that and try to pretend as though COVID was this destructive disease that was killing everybody, when in reality, what happened was they restricted medications that would work. They told you to sit in your home for 2 weeks while your lungs got filled up. Then they sent you to the hospitals, and then they gave you ventilators and a concoction that was toxic, that was kept out of the pharmaceutical industry because it was too toxic to give to anybody. That was the protocol from Dr. Darth Fauci. And it bothers me because you start to think, is there anybody in the government that is going to shoot straight with the American people? Do you believe out there listening today that this is what went down with COVID? Do you honestly believe that Dr. Darth Fauci, who supposedly was working in Wuhan, China, to develop gain of function — I'm not saying that he wasn't doing that, but he's the one that is behind the problem, and then Donald Trump and the Trump administration, along with Biden and his administration, put Dr. Darth Fauci as the front man for fixing the problem that they're now saying he started? This was a planned event. This was a planned event to change the course of human history and change the course of what goes down in America. That is why you needed passports to leave the country. That's why I couldn't go to New York. My biggest accounts when I was in the shoe business were in Manhattan. I couldn't go to Manhattan during COVID because I didn't have a card that says I was vaccinated. You understand what I'm saying? This was BS. And it just drives me insane because you want to grab onto somebody in Washington, D.C. and say they actually care about the American citizens and they're going to tell them the truth. There is no justice. More with Rand Paul.
We do know that this was going on, that was funded by the NIH, specifically under the tutelage of Anthony Fauci. We know all of that, but we know even more now. We know that the initial estimate by the scientists at the CIA was that this came from the lab. They agreed with our supposition, but Anthony Fauci was able to coerce, cajole, persuade, and dangle money to get people in the intelligence community to change their vote. So a scientific commission within the CIA voted 6-1 to say it came from the lab. He somehow
you would have to be and I hate to be mean, you would have to be an imbecile to be in government, to have studied all of this information as I have, and believe that the CIA was influenced by Darth Fauci instead of the reverse, which was Darth Fauci was working for the CIA. It is just blows my mind. And again, it takes me off the Rand Paul trail. It used to be somebody that I respected. And now I think he is just a part of the system like everybody else. And I don't know what happens when they go to DC. I really don't. I don't understand what goes down when you go to DC. Do you go to DC and get lost in all of the information and you believe all this, the CIA is coming in and the intelligence operations are coming in and the pharmaceutical companies are coming in and the bankers are coming in and you get lost and you can't think anymore. You don't have any common sense whatsoever. Or is it more nefarious? Are people like Rand Paul complicit in misleading the American people? How do you feel about it? People that have been following me from the very beginning, one of our listeners says, did your wife get vaccinated? No. But what happened with my wife was my wife is a nurse. Her hospital administration sent her a letter and said, if you don't get vaccinated by X date, you're no longer employed. Created a ton of turmoil in my household because my wife loves being a nurse. And she came home one day and she said, she showed me the paperwork and she said, this is what I'm getting. And I said, honey, listen, you're a grown woman. I love you, but what you do is your business. And she said, I'm not getting vaccinated. And then we started thinking, okay, well, if you're not getting vaccinated, then you're going to be out of work here before too terribly long. And you might be out of a career. This went all the way to the last 10 days before she would have been in big trouble. And Governor Ron DeSantis down in Florida scrapped it and she didn't have to get the vaccination. She filled out a religious exemption. It went through. Governor DeSantis stopped all of it, and it was all over just as fast as it started. It's very frustrating to me because when I say injustice for all, this is an injustice. What Rand Paul is doing is ridiculous. Going out onto Fox News and lying to the American people, making them believe that what killed all of these people around the world was COVID. COVID was no more dangerous than the traditional flu at all. The only difference were the protocols, how you treated it, going into the hospitals, being short of breath because it was a respiratory bug, and then putting ventilators, hardcore medication into them, and then remdesivir. That's what was killing people, in my opinion. It certainly wasn't COVID, because if COVID was killing people, everybody that I know in my life would be dead. At least one of them that didn't get vaccinated would be dead. But there's not one. Not one. And I know a lot of people. And I know a lot of people that died that got the vaccination. I know a ton of those people, but not any that resisted the vaccination. None. And nobody that stayed at home died. The people that died went to the hospital. I had 2 people on the show back in the day that freaked out right around Christmas time because they were paying attention. We were talking about what was going on with COVID. They got sick. It was right around Christmas time. They got short of breath. They started to panic. They stayed at home for a while. Then they went to the hospital. I had them on the show afterwards, and they said they had to escape the hospital. Both people, a husband and wife team, told me that they believed the hospital in Connecticut was actively trying to kill them. Actively trying to kill them. These are smart people, executives. And they said they could not believe the pressure to put a ventilator down their throat and to give them remdesivir. They said the pressure was intense inside that hospital. That's what we need to get to. Justice would be making these hospitals pay, making the NIH pay, making DARPA pay, making the politicians that stood behind it and lied to you pay, making the news organizations that sold it to you, making them pay. That would be justice. It is not justice to lie to the American people and give all of these families that were disrupted, all of these businesses that were disrupted, cover by saying Dr. Darth Fauci is the blame for it when Dr. Darth Fauci is a maniac, but he's just was doing his job for bigger organizations. And I think everybody who's followed the story knows that. So that's one. Rand Paul bothers me greatly. That's a bummer to me. He is somebody that I've been following for a long time, somebody that I had a lot of respect for. This tells me that he's right back with the rest of them. And maybe Donald Trump is right about some of these people because he doesn't like Rand Paul. And maybe now it's starting to make sense to me as to why, because that is just absurd. Let me just go a little bit further here. This is Nicholas Holscher. Nicholas Holscher went on to Newsmax, and he's talking about studies that are coming out. If you're paying attention to the studies around the vaccinations for COVID worldwide, what you're going to find out is all of these independent studies around the world are now telling us that COVID was the killer. COVID was causing the heart attacks. COVID was causing the facial paralysis. COVID is what is causing these aggressive cancers that we going on right now, heart attacks and strokes. It was the vaccine for COVID. The COVID vaccines, genetic therapies, that was what was killing people. Those are still on the market. The Trump administration gave $780 million just recently for childhood COVID vaccinations. Nobody knows because the media doesn't tell you anything. Here is Nicholas Holscher talking about new studies. We're going to play them from now until forever, the real studies that are coming out about the devastating effects of the COVID vaccinations. Check this out.
Massive population studies just came out, one in Italy, one in South Korea, over 8.7 million people combined. They compared vaccinated to unvaccinated. The COVID vaccinated individuals suffered increased risks of 7 major cancers, some of the same cancers we see in this new data. We have all of the mechanistic studies now, over 100 studies actually indicate these mRNA injections may induce cancer via 17 distinct mechanisms. Official government data by the National Cancer Institute. And we see from 2021 to 2023, the cancer incidence rates, new cancer cases skyrocketed up 6.4%. Colorectal cancers up 19%, and those under 50. Brain tumors up 19%. Small intestine cancer, it's now undeniable.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's crazy. And yet nobody has gone to jail over it.
Nobody has gone to jail over it. That is the problem. Injustice for all. That is the title of the show because we are not getting justice in this country anymore. We are getting lied to around the clock. And you don't have to get, people get upset with me. They're like, Rob, you're so negative. I'm not negative. I'm just showing you where the country is going if we don't choose to get involved in it. That's all. Not negative. I'm going to get off the show today. Have a great day. It's going to be a great day, everybody. It's going to be a great day. You don't have to bury your head in the sand in order to enjoy your life, in my humble opinion. What makes life interesting is solving some of these problems. Humanity has to work together to solve a corrupt government that is completely out of control, and bring it back into a constitutional framework because they don't care about the Constitution. They don't care at all about you or the Constitution. And I think that's easy to see. I think it's easy to see if you pay attention. Elaine says they wanted to see just how much control they could have over us. They just wanted to see how much control they could have over us. Elaine, I agree. I think part of it was a study in human behavior through fear and coercion, and then holding a carrot or a stick to you. That is how they sold COVID. They're now saying that you could convince seven out of 10 Americans to go roll up their sleeve, stick a needle in their arm for something they didn't even understand or even know what was in it, or have any understanding of what was going on in the world whatsoever. Pure propaganda. Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. Why it's so dangerous is you can organize propaganda and aim it at the American people and get away with it legally. They may have been doing it for 100 years, but this gave them cover. This is like if robbing banks is illegal, or robbing banks is not illegal, and you start robbing banks, everybody know it's bad, and you go, well, let's make robbing banks illegal at the last minute. That's kind of the scenario. It's not a very good example. I apologize for that. That was kind of off the top. But they're making laws to protect themselves after they've committed the crime. How about that? AdvancedWellnessMed.com. Let's get to AdvancedWellnessMed.com. This is my good friend, Dr. Helen Gelhart. Dr. Helen Gelhart got out of the hospital administrations for the reasons I just laid out for you. If you are concerned about cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, strokes, heart attacks, your doctor is Dr. Helen Gelhart. She is the one that cares about patients over profits. And I'm telling you what, when I see what goes on in the hospital administrations, let me tell you something. That is a rare combination. Somebody who has the expertise to solve problems for you and has put patients over profit. That is Dr. Helen Gelhart. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. She said, Rob, just remind people that we assist with the divine healer. Very spiritual woman. Feel, think, look better, live longer. The earliest cancer detection blood test available, pre-screenings for heart attacks and strokes, and she can reverse symptoms with Alzheimer's and dementia. So, again, if you know somebody in your family, somebody in your life that is beginning to show signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, you got to get out and you got to get to Dr. Helen Gelhart. I implore you, this is the best call you'll ever make. 314-576-0094, 576-0094. Dr. Helen Gelhot, Advanced Wellness, MED.com. ECS Roofing. When the weather gets bad, you're going to get some hail somewhere along the way here. Your roofs are going to get messed up, and you're going to be in need of a new roof. I suggest that you go to our contractor, ECS Roofing and Exteriors, our friend Larry Evans. Roofing, siding, gutters, you name it, they will take care of you. It is ECS Roofing, best in class. He's a private insurance adjuster. So if you have people knocking on your door telling you that they're going to get your roof replaced by the insurance companies, that's just a fraud. They don't know. He knows. So when he tells you the insurance companies are going to work with you, they plan on working with you. He'll get the job done. He'll do it conscientiously, and he'll do it at a fraction of the cost of some of these other roofers in the area. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. Reach out to him at 314-486-3567. 314-486-3567. If you're in the family, you got to use ECS. Spread the name, spread the message. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. You can check out their work on Facebook. And then one more, of course, joneswater.com. If you are, if you own a home or business and you're still drinking tap water, I just got to tell you, big mistake. The reason you get those skin irritations and those constant little ailments like colds and flus and so forth is often because of nasty air and nasty water in your home, and we just take it for granted. You have got to get water filtration systems, air filtration systems in your home. We have them both. joneswater.com, 636-899-1040. He also says, Rob, remind everybody in Missouri, in the heat of summer, you need a dehumidifier. It'll save you money on your energy bills, crisp, clean air in your home. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. joneswater.com, 636-899-1040, 636-899-1040. Guy's been around since 1995. If you've ever seen him on our show, you know that he knows more about water and how water works and what water does to the human body than anybody you're ever going to talk to. It is joneswater.com, 636-899-1040. If you want to do business with Everett, he does business in St. Charles County, Lincoln, Franklin, Warren, St. Louis, and Jefferson. And if you go to the east side, Madison, Monroe, Jersey, and St. Clair. joneswater.com, you'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter, 636-899-1040. All right, our first guest today is Jeff Jacks. I got to know Jeff Jacks. He is running for Missouri House, and he's over in North County, right around where I grew up. I've got to know Jeff. Jeff is very sincere when he says he wants to fix a lot of the problems. I don't think that you're going to be able to buy Jeff off, or I don't think he's going to get into the Missouri body of politics and be just another rubber stamp for the establishment. What we want and what we will seek out are people with courage that will go into Jefferson City and say, it might be one term for me. I might be 2 years and out of there, but I'm going there as a representative of the people to expose what goes on in this system, not to be a rubber stamp for big money and the big lobby firms that come into Jefferson City. Our first guest is Jeffrey Jacks. Let me get Jeff on the stage here. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
Rob, it's great to see you again. You know what? If I had hair like yours, I wouldn't be wearing a hat today.
It's getting a little thin in the back, Jeffrey. I'm not happy about it at all. That's why I like to wear these, because you can't really see it.
You know, I keep asking the people to cut my hair. How come I pay full price? I have half the amount of hair I had 20 years ago.
You should get a
They
discount.
just laugh like, you know, Rob, I wanted to talk about my campaign, but you brought up the Constitution. And you know what? We could do a show on that alone, but I'm going to give our viewers the short rundown. In March of 1933, the newly elected FDR, Democrat, and the newly elected Congress, Democrats, amended the Trading with the Enemy Act, and we are the enemy of our own government and our country. This stuff gives me goosebumps.
Nobody believes that, though. They don't see it that way.
I can prove it. And if you think I can't prove it,
I could see it.
I'll give anybody $1,000 can prove I'm wrong, because my documents all come from the federal government. We have been under a continuing state of emergency since basically March the 9th officially of 33. All those years, we're coming up on almost 93 years plus of emergency rule. And Heritage has their Constitution 101. I'm sorry, not Heritage. Oh, what's the name of the college? Anyway, the independent college. It's not Heritage.
Liberty?
Huh? Hillsdale. Yeah, they run the Free Constitution 101, and in their advertisements, they say we are so far removed from the Constitution, it's not recognizable. And this is why. This is why you have all these alphabet agencies. Not a one of them is legal or constitutional. And if you doubt me, just go get Senate Report 93-549. It tells you in the introduction that the report was written by the Senate to figure out how they could back out of the emergency, and they came to the conclusion that it's become so commonplace they don't want to end it. Lastly, 25% of Americans who have jobs work for the government.
Mhm.
It's just, we're the enemy, folks, and that's why you hear Rob railing. Excuse me. That's why the COVID thing, all this, we're the enemy. And what do? And then lastly on that, if you really need more modern proof, look at how they treated all the illegals. They treated them better than you, the supposed citizen, because you are the enemy.
Absolutely.
So with that, since
Good.
you brought
Hey,
it
nice.
up,
I like where you're starting from, because these are things that people when you talk about it, Jeff, people think you're insane. They do not see they're not their people. Because when I say that I love the country, I love the people in this country. I love what the country stands for. When that flag waves and we're talking about freedom and liberty and a constitutional government, I love it. I'll fight for it to the very bitter end, and I'll dedicate every ounce of my energy to making sure that I leave a free country with liberty and justice for all to my children. It means a lot to me. It's important to me. It's a mission for me, and I think it is for you as well. But I don't think people are recognizing just how much our government is intruding on our God-given liberties. They don't even care anymore. The state of Missouri is ridiculous. DC is ridiculous. All of these people that are perpetuating this nonsense should be held accountable. And I'd like to see that happen in my lifetime. I'm going to work hard to expose it as best I can. And that's why I'm having you on the show today, because I think you're in the same game with me. I think you feel the same.
I've been in the same game with you since the first time I heard your show. Now, let me say this. I can be bought because everyone has a price. But I don't think anybody's going to drop $1 billion on me. So I guess
$1 billion and you'll change your opinion.
For $1 billion, I'll pay my taxes on it and I'll disappear to South Dakota. Short of that,
I like it.
I get not a so far. I have not gotten one penny from the party. I'm running a totally grassroots campaign. My opponent in one day in September last year raised over $29,000, predominantly from his lobbyist family. His dad and uncle are literally registered lobbyists. You can see the LCCs who donated, family money from all over the state, all the PAC money, all the special interests. And he's already paid for. Plus, as far as the city of Overland, it's in decline. It's in serious decline. And on his first mailer, he said 10 years in office in Overland. And now he's ready to go to Jeff City.
So is this a Democrat or Republican?
Well, of course he's the Democrat. I'm the Republican.
So you'll get through the primaries unopposed, I would assume.
That's correct.
So
as he will too.
And I grew up in that area. That is probably what I'm going to guess 55% Democrat, 55, 60.
Yeah, I would say it's a little less these days with the help of the National Party driving people out. I mean, I'm meeting lifelong Democrats who write me checks, not big ones, but small checks. I think about a nice 74-year-old woman who was so disappointed they reelected the same leadership. She sees the decline of Overland. She gets no cooperation out of him when she's got a problem because she's not part of the clique. It's just what they've done. 3 generations of this family have been pulling all the strings. Wow. And they are smart. They go after all the power people and help them out. And my opponent's treasurer, his father said, well, when I asked about why she the treasurer, he gave her a great deal on a house. So they get you indebted. It's not like in the old days where they would literally meet you in a dark alley and hand you bags full of cash.
You help me, I'll help you kind of thing, right? It doesn't matter what your political, where you even stand on issues necessarily. You help me, I become an asset for you, and then I got to help you back.
Right. And that's what goes on, and I can go and complain about them. But let's talk about something positive.
Well, go ahead, but I want to ask you, don't let me forget, because I want to get to some of the amendments and I want to get your opinion on them. So I'll let you have the mic, but I want to make sure we get to 4, 5 flock cameras and AI data centers. I want your opinion on those things.
Okay, great. I just want to hold up the campaign card. This was printed in July of last year. None of the issues have changed. Matter of fact, to self-aggrandize I was a visionary because I talked about stopping the city-county merger and people laughed. And it's right back in the forefront a year later. Our budget's out of control. I've already put out a video where our auditor, Scott Fitzpatrick, says we're heading toward a brick wall. All these issues are more timely now than they were in July of last year when this card was printed. So we've got to take over our school, not take over. We have to fix our failing schools is my number one issue. Sadly, it's going to take state, just like they did in Mississippi. We currently rank number 41 in fourth grade reading what they call proficiency. And I like to make a joke out of that. I taught my dog how to read. My older dog, Kenny, I can hold up signs to say, read it, and he does what 7 words say. So I guess he's just not proficient in reading. You get the point. These kids can't read. My superintendent publicly on video, you can find the Facebook stream, says, quote, I'm telling you right now, we're going to get an F. Rittner schools are going to get an F rating. We're going to lose full accreditation. And my opponent said on April 8th that we're in good hands. And in early February, when he sent out his first mailer, he said, we need more money for schools, and we're spending record levels. Mississippi went from last to number 9 with less money.
Yeah, it's not
So
always
I have to get to Jefferson City. If the one thing I want to do is at least make sure people can read and we can really have a future for our whole state, because without skilled people, we have no future.
I got to
Back
ask
to you, my good friend.
I'm with you on the education thing. I don't think it always comes down to how much money you can throw at it. I think that's the one, that's the one problem we have is everybody thinks the more money you throw at it, the better it's going to get. And I think when it comes to education, that's not necessarily the case.
It is
not
proven.
I got to ask you, because you and I talked, we were at we went to a friend of ours home and we saw somebody speak. There was a kind of a political event held in somebody's home. And you were sitting outside and we were talking on the back deck and you said that you're not getting any help from the Republican Party. Now, I know the area that you're in. I know that area. I grew up in that area, right? I told you, I said, that right where we met, the first time, I'm walking up and down that street all the time as a kid. So I know the area. I know it very well. It's where I was raised. You have a chance there.
I'm going to win. It's not a chance. I definitely am going to win. They're acting scared. Now, let me say this.
Why wouldn't the Republican
It's not
Party
that I'm
help?
getting no help. I do get some good advice and suggestions and guidance from select people. But as far as money yet from the party, not a penny yet.
Why?
We'll see what happens. Well, because when you have 110 to 112 reps and a super majority, why invest in my area, even though Jack Howard and I, fellow committee man, put 6 state reps on the ballot for North County, and it draws attention away. We've saved the party tens and tens of thousands of dollars. But we'll see what happens after the HRCC summer caucus and see what comes around. Because right now with the primaries, they're all focused on their folks on the primaries.
And I'm told you're out knocking on doors. You're relentless on door knocking. What kind of response do you get as you're door knocking in that area, talking about conservative values?
Well, that's a good question. And I'll tell you, I've had Democrats, lifelong Democrats who've had enough, like my friend Mabel. They're putting up signs. They're writing checks, not big checks, but I've had my share of people, like one lady. Her first name's Mary, invited me in. We talked. At the end, she wrote me $100 check. I said, can I put a sign out? She goes, I'm a Democrat. I can't do that. And then 2 weeks later, she calls me and says, come put out a sign. So when you get to normal thinking people, the message, the schools, and all the other things, they land real well. When you get to the extreme left, well, they're no different than the extreme right. You can't help them, so you don't get those. But I do not believe that my opponent can win on the I hate Trump crowd. There's not enough of them. So thinking people, they're listening to what I have to say. Many of them, you find out, have the core values, and the sign goes right up. Other people go, well, I'll look into it. So at least they're being open-minded.
Okay, good.
So I think the reception's fantastic. And I can tell you that as hard as they're working, which they've never had to do, they're scared. They are so scared, and I have the actual proof that their sycophants are literally stealing campaign signs. Their machine is literally trespassing on private property to put signs up next to mine. We got that proof too, in writing from the property owners. So they're running scared. They don't have this in the bag, and I got news for them. Come after the primary, they ain't seen nothing yet.
I would assume you're out working people. You remind me of a little bit of David Robertson, who we have on the show from time to time. And they're just like, you know what? I'm going to outwork my opponent. I'm going to get out there and knock on as many doors as I can. I'm not taking days off. I'll get out there in the heat. I'll make it happen. And that's where he's at. That's kind of the understanding I have of your campaign is you're relentless out there working and spreading the message every day.
Well, I do my best. You know, Dave's a little younger than me. 2 years ago, I worked through the heat of the summer to win committee man. 2 years later, it's not as easy.
Yeah,
I mean, the heat index this week is oppressive. I'm doing other stuff, but I work on it every day. I can't sleep at night, but last things I think about are the campaign and the first things that start my day.
I get it. All right, well, let's get to some questions here because I think
Sure.
This audience, the people that are listening in, and I always tell everybody that comes on the show, you got to cut these up. You should use this for your campaign. This is a chance to get your information out there. So if you can cut these interviews up and get them out onto social media, it'd be great for you, especially on Facebook. Got to ask you first question. Amendment 4, right? Amendment 4 says that you're going to need all 8, I think, voting districts in Missouri. You're going to have a unanimous 50+1 in all 8 districts to get something on the ballot. Whereas now what they want to do is move it to where, and right now it's 5 out of 8. They're saying out-of-town money comes in, shapes the political landscape because money's coming in from out of state. So they want to pass Amendment 4, but then they're saying themselves, right? Congress only needs to have 5 of 8. They only need to have a simple majority. And people that are against it are fighting, saying, wait a minute, why is the standard higher for us than it is for you? What is your take on Amendment 4? Do you see this as being a good thing? Just your overall opinion of it.
Well, the short answer is yes, it's a good thing, and here's why. And you've met Midland Township Committeeman Jack Howard. He's my historian and statistician. Last night he was over preparing for our next town hall on July 7th at Acapulco Restaurant, which will be featuring the flock camera. But it takes, according to Jack, takes 3/4 of the states to amend our federal constitution. Yet our opposition says, oh no, we only need 50% of the vote plus 1 additional vote. It just goes quite contrary to the founding of this nation. So I think it should be what Amendment 4 is. We got to keep the foreign money out. We got to stop people on, getting these things done. And they get it done by sending in people from out of state or paying people with out of state or even out of the country money. And they stand there on the street corner and go, hey, sign my petition for the online gaming because it's going to mean $100 million for the schools. And in that example, when you do the math, it's $20 million a year. You divide by the number of school districts, you divide by the number of buildings, and it's nothing. And then you try to figure out how many classrooms, and it comes out to a few $100s a classroom. Each school district will be able to afford 1 new administrator. And FanDuel and all these online companies, I don't even think they have any actual staff in St. Louis other than maybe, or in Missouri, I should say. Maybe they're ad agencies based here. So we need Amendment 4 to protect our republic. We're not a direct democracy.
Okay, so you're a yes on 4.
Oh, I'm a yes on 4.
Okay, let's talk about 5. Now, 5 is one that has got everybody up in arms. A5 says that we need to move away from the income tax. And according to the language, there's going to be guardrails on it. As revenue comes in, they'll lower the income tax and they're going to raise usage and service taxes. And what is your take on this? Because, the grassroots are very against it. The establishment is very for it. How do you see it?
Well, my stance doesn't curry favor with the party. I can just tell you, that pretty much tells you. And here I've done the research on that. I'm not the brightest guy, but I got a little thinking skills, critical thinking. And so you ask AI, what is our total Missouri domestic gross product? And it's around 480 billion. Then you ask what percentage of that's labor, and it's 70%, or services, 70%. And then you ask it, how much would you have to tax of that percentage to replace the $9 billion of money that you'll lose from the income tax? And it's $270 billion of our GDP. So my constituents, the Social Security recipients, the people who earn $16 an hour or less, who aren't paying a tax. It's a tax increase, and I've already signed the pledge with Americans for Tax Reform not to ever vote to raise anyone's taxes. So I can't vote for it because my constituents don't want it.
That's simple. All right. So you're no on 5. Let's get into some of the things that are very concerning to me. Let's start with the surveillance state that's beginning to take shape under the nose of everybody. It's funny. I had a guy yesterday. He was one of my first bosses in the shoe business back when I was like 24, 25, 26 years old. And he found an old Facebook profile of mine. It wasn't even Isaiah saw it and forwarded it to me. And it said, Rob, I gave you 3+ hours today on your show, and you took me places I never even thought of. And the reason I think he's talking about that, and I've just met with a friend and had breakfast with him the other day, and he said, what's your show about? He's from North Carolina, and I started laying it out for him. And, his response to me was basically, I don't even have any idea what you're talking about. He didn't know what flock cameras were. He had no understanding of AI data centers. He didn't know what 702 warrantless, FISA warrantless searches are. He had no idea about any of these things, and he didn't know about digital currencies. And I said, that's the problem, is I think the masses, maybe 95% of the country is completely unaware of all of these things beginning to take shape at one time, right? It's like, it's one piece over here, it's one piece over there. There's several different pieces. But when those pieces lock together, you're going to be completely surveilled by a central source. And we got to be concerned about that at some level, because we're giving up one of our constitutional rights, Amendment number 4, our right to privacy. What is your take on the flock safety cameras? What is your take on the AI data centers? Do you see it from that perspective, or do you see it from another?
Well, you already hit it. We're giving up our Fourth Amendment, so I think all these surveillance cameras are a Fourth Amendment violation. I'm understanding from my next featured speaker on July 7th, 7 p.m., Acapulco Restaurant, St. Anne, Missouri. Everybody listens to this. If they're anywhere in the area, they got to be at Acapulco to really get the facts. If you are undecided or opposed flock, even if you're in favor of it right now, maybe you need to get all the facts, because I got a PhD by the name of George Limpert, who's done the deep dive, and he knows how to do research. So he will be our featured speaker. But I'm even understanding from him.
When is it?
July 7th, the first Tuesday of July.
July 7th at Acapulco Lounge. You'll have somebody that's done the research on these flock cameras.
Oh, yeah. Deep dive.
I'll promote that for you if you send me the information on it, because I think people need to understand this is a big deal. We got Jake Jackson, who was supposed to be on the show today. He got ill. He's speaking at all these council meetings, and he's saying, listen, this is an infringement upon our Fourth Amendment rights. And then the police come in and say, well, we found a guy that stole a car over here, or we found this guy that beat his wife when he was driving. I'm like, well, you could say that about anything. My argument about that, Jeff, is if you put a camera behind my head and the police can watch me all day long, well, that's going to cut down my crime, because I know I'm being watched all the time, but I'm not free anymore. Right.
1984, I'm thinking about doing a free showing, a movie night. First 100 people get free popcorn and soft drinks. We'll see if we can get 100 people in an Acapulco restaurant, or how many body can. I mean, like I was going to say, I even understand your Ring doorbell. These doorbell cams, your cams are all being fed up through all this stuff too. So I already put out a video. When I get to office, when I get to Jeff City, I'm going to sponsor or submit a bill, file a bill that bars any government money to support these cams and the data that goes with them. Stop the flock cams, whether it's state money, whether it's state grant money, whether it's your local city, your county. We got to abolish these. We got to cut off their money source. And what people aren't also hearing about is, other than the successes here and there, about the misidentified people and how the cops are using their access to the data to track their girlfriends or stalk women or guys they're interested in. Right. It's being abused on every level. And my city, I didn't even know until Dr. Limpert told me, 50 grand we approved. My board of aldermen approved 50 grand so our city can spy on us. He tells me he believes we have about a dozen cams in St. Anne.
Really?
Yes.
Now, I can't imagine. I know that area. Like I said, I grew up in it. There is no way that the citizens of that area are going to want flock safety cameras up en masse. Now, you might get 30% of the people, but I just know that I know the people in that area. There's no way that they want to be spied on. No chance.
Of course not. Again, you already said it. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. It's just like the red light cams. You can't face your accuser. When I said that about a red light cam to an attorney, they laughed. And then 2-3 years later, some smart attorney in New Jersey made that argument and, of course, won the case for their client. I'm like, gee, I didn't even go to law school. I have no idea. And I'm like, you can't face your accuser. Bring the cam in. Let me cross-examine the cam. It's all unconstitutional. So they finally made them take down the red light cams.
Well, if you just go back to the cameras that used to be on the traffic stops.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I might just tell you a real quick story that happened to me. So the car was in my name. My son was driving it. He went over to Illinois. Apparently he ran a red light. He's like 17 or 18 years old. And they sent me the ticket. And it was from Illinois. And I called him up and I said, listen, I don't know what you're talking about. It's that I wasn't in Illinois in that day. I said, that's my son's car. And they said, well, it's your driver's license and you'll have to pay the ticket. And I said, well, I'm not paying the ticket. So let's get past that point. There's zero chance you're going to have to come arrest me. I'm not giving you money. Guy called me. This is a true story. It was from Granite City, Illinois, and the cop called. I got done talking to him. I got a little frustrated with him because I'm a person who likes my rights. He called me afterwards privately and told me that if I didn't pay the ticket, nothing would happen. How about that?
Well, they had to dismiss a bunch of them too. Finally, when they had to outlaw them, it's ridiculous. Again, it's 1984. In certain parts of the world, they're arresting people based on their Facebook posts. I think that's in Europe and England or somewhere. They just want you to give up your rights. Some of the Republicans are complicit, but the whole Democrat Party just wants to take your guns, tax you more, support people above citizens. We saw it at the State of the Union. They're electing socialist communists in New York. The sickness is spreading.
What is it with the Democrat Party? I think they're controlled by the same money, but what is it with Democrat ideology that they believe that government is benevolent? Right. They want to throw everything at the government. They want to take away all your ability to protect your families by taking away your guns, because then there will be less crime. I guess they think less whatever if you can't protect your family. If young girls that are 105 pounds are walking around at night and they can't protect themselves, that's just the way it is, because the government's going to be there right away for you. They always want big government programs. It's if they have never read or have the inability to understand that government is not your buddy. You don't want to give the government all of your money and then beg for your rights or beg for your freedoms from your government. But it seems like the Democrat ideology, and I'm talking about the voters, they seem to think the bigger the government and the less rights the citizens have, the better off we're going to be. I don't understand where they're coming from. It's a very strange thing. Do you think that's from the education system?
Oh, definitely. That's what I was going to say. When you make sure your kids can't read, when they don't have any critical thinking skills, and they're indoctrinated, like at Rittner Middle School on Marshall Road, where they pull the kids out of school and have a protest against ICE. And then they try to claim the teachers aren't involved. They're just watching as supervisors. Well, half those kids can't read the posters they're carrying. It's all part. It sounds so conspiratorial, but when you really shine the light, I call it a circle. We put in people, they're predominantly leftists these days. They hire all these teachers. They tell me I got to have 20 kids to a class, unlike when I was a kid where you had 30 plus, where we were much better educated. The teachers all donate to the NEA, which turns around and takes 2/3 of its money and spends it on political. So they support the people who they want running their board of education, and the circle starts all over until you get to the video where you have your superintendent, who I've met with, nice guy, saying, quote, I'm telling you right now, we're getting an F. Rittner is a failure with the new rating system, because they hate it because it's so transparent. People can understand A through F. They hate it. They hate the rating system. They got all sorts of excuses for their failure. I've already called them out as a failure. I've called out my opponent because he said we're in good hands. We're not in good hands when over 60% of my Rittner students can't read. We're in horrible hands.
And it's changed over time. I'm 56, and I remember taking tests when I was a kid. And when I was taking tests in first, second, third grade, they give you kind of complex little problems for a 6 or 7 or 8 year old, and they had to figure it out. They taught you to think for yourself. They taught you to figure things out. now, and then I watched my kids grow up, and most of it was memorization, right? You had to memorize the things that were going to be on the test. Then you'd pass the test, forget all about it, and move on, because they're not teaching you how to think. They're teaching you what to think so that you memorize what their information is. And that's what sticks in your skull. You're not thinking for yourself. You're being indoctrinated. That's really what it is. I mean, the school system has changed, at least where my kids were going, it's changed dramatically. And I don't think it's good. I got to get to AI data centers. I know education's big for you, but one more thing that is a big bone of contention with our listeners are the AI data centers. We've had people from all over the country talk about AI data centers. There's a big push by the establishment in Florida to get them in. There's a big push against it. Same thing going on all over the country. The Republican Party leadership wants AI data centers for whatever reason. And the grassroots are saying, wait a minute, we don't want it. We don't want it to strain on our natural resources. We don't like it. Where do you fit into that conversation?
You know, that's a complicated issue. So if we look at it with a worldview, we're kind of stuck with them, if you really think about it. But it's how do we implement it? The strain on the electrical grid is certainly important. I have learned that there are ways to not have it affect the water tables. There's multiple ways to keep those servers cool and not drain your water resources. There's certainly avenues around electrical, but it's what they do with the data. And a big part of it is that's my real concern.
Yeah, me too.
They don't employ a lot of people past the construction phase. A lot of them can phone it in. The only physical people you need on site are the people who keep the hardware running. The people who program it and throw the switches can do that away. So it's a tough one. It's coming. We can't let China get ahead of us in technology because they'll use it against us. But we have to have real guardrails, and we have to make sure they're not using it to crunch all this flock data and things that are really affecting our constitutional rights. So again, it's a tough one. So I'm kind of like, if with the proper guardrails, it could be a really good thing. But if we just let them do whatever they want to do there, it's a bad thing. And I would have to, of course, oppose it. So, you know, that's a tough issue. And I think we're all operating, not all, but a lot of us are operating on an emotional level, as humans tend to do. And I think we all need to do a little deeper dive and figure out what guardrails can we put in to protect our constitutional rights and freedoms. And as long as we can do that, it's hard to say no to technology. So I want real guardrails and not a drain on our resources like our electricity and water. The idea of putting one of those in the Armory in St. Louis, oh, no, absolutely not. Stick it out in the middle of nowhere and build worker housing, nice homes for the families and the people who need to be there on site, and get, you know, like the old days, the company store, bring in all the resources they need. But we got to have true protection of our constitutional rights if we're going to have them at all. Does that sound reasonable?
I lose you for a second, Jeff?
Yeah, we froze up. It's called technology.
I can't figure out what's going on with that. Maybe I need more AI data centers in my backyard. But I kind of see
I was going to say that too.
I see it the same way as you. In as much as I don't think you can stop technology from growing. It's going to be done. And you know, as Americans, we want to be on the forefront of technology, right? You want to have as much control over your surroundings as you possibly can. You want to use the data. It might solve illnesses, might solve all kinds of complex problems at the end of the day. AI should. However, I'm not seeing my government do this in a systematic fashion, right? Because I'm looking at it going, if I want to get AI data centers built, right? I understand all the computing power, what it's going to do with natural resources is going to be a strain, no matter how you look at it, there's going to be a strain on natural resources. So if we're going to do this, what are the protections for the citizens? Exactly like you said, this is my conversation with everybody that I have about it. What are the constitutional protections? Because if you're going to be able to store data on me, if you're going to be able to store data on me from now until forever, Jeff, I don't know what you were like when you were a kid. I know what I was like when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. All I thought about was partying, getting out to the night,
there you go,
chasing girls around. And if I was, and I assume that's the way a lot of red-blooded American males are going to be from now until forever. And if that's the case, do I want every mistake that I made being captured and stored? And then maybe at age 45, I want to run for office, and they go, here's Rob. This is, and then they paint that picture of you because they're able to store all of your information, every keystroke, right? maybe you were into drugs, or maybe you were into some kind of nefarious activity when you were young. You got older, you figured out your ways, you started your life over again. They can go back and frame you with things. This is the danger of not having of not having protections against AI data centers and AI storage, because again, you cannot it's really in politics is where it's going to get you, right? If you touch the iron of politics, and people can go back into your history and store data on you and then put that out into the world, I think we're in for a George Orwell type situation. If
You
we
know,
put guardrails on it.
Rob, like I said, I already did a video on it. Not only will I stop any government grants or direct funding, both state, county, and local, got to have storage limits. Already did the video on it. You got to watch my stuff more often, Rob. You
I
gotta
think I have seen it. You got to realize I'm taking in a lot of info, baby.
yeah,
lot.
well, I get that.
The brain is
You're a
only so
busy
big.
guy, and you've kind of replaced me as the most dangerous talk show host in America. So
That was your title, right? When you were in radio?
that's what I called myself. Had everyone on from Ted Nugent, Sweaty Teddy, to Jennifer Flowers, all the Arkansas insiders. When the militia had their encampment in North County, I was the only media person who had free roam. Everybody else was in a roped off area. When you come out and tell the truth consistently, people figure it out.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I got to go off on my opponent. I've heard stories from supporters who said he came to their door and the 80-plus-year-old husband answered when the wife wasn't home. And when asked if he was pro-life, he told him yes. So I had one of my supporters ask him his stance on Amendment 3. And of course, he's 100% behind it, being a Democrat. And I took that back to the people who had told me that. They had put his signs up. I'm like, what's with that? But then by the next day I went back, his signs were gone. I left the material on their door and planted my signs. And tonight I'll see if my signs are still there. They'll say anything. It's amazing. It's not amazing. It's what you should expect from these people.
Kind of
They're all
politics.
just sheep's and wolves. What is it? Well, a wolf in sheep's clothing.
All
Come on,
right.
you got something else for me before we got to go?
No, I think you're good. Is there anything else you want to get out? Is there any campaign information you want to share with everybody? And
Well, I want everybody to go to my
There
website,
it is.
www.jeff72.com. See, we made it real easy. Jeff72.com. I didn't bring all my social media links. Just go to X, look for my name, go to Facebook, Jeff Jacks for state rep. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook with my personal page and the campaign page. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Follow, like, share. Help me get the message out. Donate to the campaign. It's a grassroots campaign. Not the only way. The door knocking like Dave's doing tonight pays off. I need volunteers who can come out and help, host meet and greets, and just take an active role in this campaign. Or what's going to happen is, for my district, God forbid, you're going to send someone there who'll have no seat at the table, as Senate 14 candidate taught me. And he asked people at the door, do you think they really care about us in outstate Missouri, Branson, Springfield, name any other area? And it's not that they wish us ill will, but they don't really care. And he says, if we broke off and floated down the Mississippi, they'd be happy. And so what happens in Jeff City is, when you have a super majority, Democrats get no voice. They don't need one of their votes to get anything through. And I'll wrap it with this. I looked at the hard numbers according to Ballotpedia for a 10-year legislative cycle from the beginning of legislative session in 2015 through the end of 24. Democrats sponsored bills, 18 became law to 725 Republican bills. So North County, if you want a voice who's got your best interests at heart, not the interests of their family and special interests, you got to put me in office, because I have a seat at the table. And the governor will actually take my phone calls, and I'll be at the mansion. And I'll be a true constitutionalist. And that's, like Rob would tell you, that's what his show's been about. I'm going to say this. I'm going to venture to say you're so much of a constitutionalist is that's probably why you're not on broadcast radio
It is why.
today.
Oh yeah, that's why. It is. It's, if you follow the Constitution, you are not welcome in certain circles, because they would rather have the power than have the Constitution have the power. They'd rather the people have the power. We're going to talk about it as soon as we get off the air with you. I'm going to play something from it's called the 10th Amendment Association. or 10th Amendment Center. And they put all kinds of videos out about what the founding fathers said about how to keep a constitutional republic. And it's brilliant. I love this guy. I got to get him on the air, but he talks about that explicitly. He says, and I'm going to play a clip here in just a minute where he says, the problem with voting for an issue that you like when it's not constitutional is it erodes your constitutional rights over time because everybody will begin to pick away at the Constitution. So what you see is a lot of, especially Republicans, maybe more so than Democrats, at least in my opinion, is they will, and I'm talking about the legislators, not the voters. They'll look at it and say, well, this is really good. I like this. This is what I like. Although it's unconstitutional, I like it, and I can convince people it's good. I know it's unconstitutional, but I think it's good. It's a good issue for me. And then they push the issue through, and they say, well, if the courts think it's unconstitutional, they'll figure it out. That's what Jefferson City does all the time. They pass
You got it. And I want to just leave on that. I know we're running out of time. Let me leave on that. When I started my campaign, I tell people when I get there, I'll only vote for stuff that's lawful, makes sense, and is affordable. And that fell short. So I figured out things evolve, what it takes to send a message to people to really garner their vote. But you're 100% right. You got to uphold your oath of office. You're swearing an allegiance to the Constitution. And like a few of our reps and senators, you got to uphold your oath because, you're taking an oath and it's a sacred oath. And if you can't uphold your oath, you don't deserve to be in office. There you go. There's James O'Brien popping up on here.
You see,
we all know James, great guy, but you got to uphold your oath. And that's why I'm going there. I'm going to uphold my oath. I'm going to only do constitutional things and work with other people who are true constitutionalists and let the chips fall where they may. And I'll close on this. They're not going to come in and primary me if they think they can in 2 years. Good luck, because I'm going to cement the base like epoxy. And they're not going to drop. I mean it. I'm not going to ever stop campaigning. After session, I'll take a week off and I'll be back out. Hi, it's your rep. I came by to talk to you. And I'm going to do more work than any rep in this district ever. And God help them. They're going to be stuck with me until I decide I don't want to hold my seat or I get termed out. And again, Rob, thank you. And there's James again. I'm the real deal. I'm so real. I'm
you're working hard. I like hard work.
I got to say this too. I'm sorry. I always say I'll close. Dude, I'm 70 years old. You know what I could be doing right now? 5 hours, 20 hours a week, making $500+ a week, doing DoorDash or Uber and enjoying life. But this is more important. It's bigger than money. I don't need their money. I make my bills. I save a few bucks. Thank God I own a duplex. I get rental income, and that's how I can go out and do this. I'm not going there for a career move. I'm going there as the last effort I can make to help our country and our state. And before I have tears roll down my eyes, because this is how emotional I get over this. That's what drives me. So, Rob, thank you. It's so good to see you. You're
brother.
so busy. It's so hard to get you. I'm so glad you gave me some time today. And you're
to
always welcome every first Tuesday. Zoom into the meeting. Take a minute or two if you can. I know you got a lot in your life, but you can always zoom in. We got the 65-inch TV, and let people know that you're out there and you're supporting us because we're running out of time. I'm going to ask you to pull every string you can and get people on board with this campaign, especially with money, because this guy can drown me in money, and that's not going to be a good thing for our state and our community.
Right on.
So again, thank you. It's so great to see you. I wish you all the success with this show. It's going to be the biggest podcast out there within a year.
I love what you have to say. Jeff72.com, Jeff72.com. If you'd like to see what he's all about, if you want to contribute money or your time and energy, Jeff72.com. Jeffrey Jacks, great to see you, my friend. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rob. Good seeing you, buddy.
Seeing you.
God bless you.
God bless you. All right. Let's see here. How do I get you off of my screen? Let me figure this out. There we go. All right, everybody. That was Jeffrey Jacks. I got to know Jeff Jacks pretty well, and I'll say this about Jeff. If you want somebody that works, if you want somebody that's going to grind away and try to get things done, he's your guy. Jeff is a worker. He's relentless. He has been spreading that message for a long time. I like people like that. That's why I like David Robertson. David Robertson works his tail off. I like people that work hard. I like people that talk to their constituents. I like people that try to do the right thing all the time and stand up against the other side, whatever that may. It could be your own party, but you got to stand up against people that are on the other side of your wishes. That is Jeffrey Jacks. All right. At 11 o'clock, we'll have Brad Patty on. So he is running for U.S. House. Now, he's going to Washington, D.C. if he wins. I think he's a fascinating candidate. but I got to get some advertising out of the way here. He said epoxy. Did you hear him say epoxy? I said, what perfect timing. RackCustomCoatings.com. This is our good friend, Rich McQuay. Been around since 2001, family owned and operated. This is the guy that does flooring for, it'd be hangars, schools, any industrial space. They do they epoxy the floors, but he can do designs, make it look beautiful. He's an artist with this type of stuff. If you look onto his website, Rack, R-A-K, customcoatings.com. Rack, R-A-K, customcoatings.com. One of the things I love about his work is I had it done myself. I try to tell everybody every day, if you understand how much better your home will look if you take care of the flooring in your garage, I just can't explain it unless you've seen it. I had not seen it done before. When they started doing the epoxy flooring, I had never seen a garage where their flooring was done. And I thought, boy, that's got to be really expensive. Turns out it's not really that crazy expensive. It's actually inexpensive. And the curb appeal to your home changes dramatically when you get all those oil stains covered up and you make your floor look nice and pristine and clean. They can put decorations into it. Absolutely fabulous business. RackCustomCoatings.com. Our friend, Rich McQuay, this is what he says. He says, Rob, we install industrial strength, long-lasting coatings built to handle anything your home or business can throw at them. And from garages to commercial spaces, Rack, R-A-K, Custom Coatings delivers tough, beautiful finishes that last. If you want to reach out to our friend Rich McQuay, if you're in the car business especially and you listen to the show and you want some cards and you want to get this out to people, any realtors, anybody that's dealing in that business where you can advise the business of RackCustomCoatings.com, just reach out to me. You can reach him at 636-398-5040, 636-398-5040, RackCustomCoatings.com. Then we have Valvoline Express Care, our friend Tony Clark. Tony's just somebody that's been with me for a long time. Just great people. You know, I want to support great businesses that support me, obviously, but I try to align myself with great people that are in it for the right reasons. This is not just about advertising. This is about creating a movement and helping us create a movement one step at a time, one brick at a time, one show at a time, one meeting at a time, one conversation at a time. That's what it takes. And I love Valvoline Express Care and a good friend, Tony Clark. 15 minutes from Beta on your way. So if you're somebody who goes, you know what, Rob, what's so special about Tony Clark and his Valvoline Express Cares? He said, I was in that business for a long time. I got complaints about oil changes taking too long, and then the upsell. You know, they come to you and they try to upsell you and all these different things. He said, we don't do either one of those things. He said, we are no pressure, no appointments, no nonsense, all Valvoline branded products. They have locations in Warrenton, Missouri, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, St. Peters Parkway, Mid Rivers Mall Drive, Troy, Illinois, and Lemay Ferry Road. Valvoline Express Care. If you need some coupons for your next oil change, Valvoline-expresscare.com. All right. Let me get into some of the other things I want to talk about today. No Isaiah. I'm rolling on my own. So I've got to organize this in a manner that makes sense to everybody. Got to hear Jeff Jacks. We talked about COVID this morning and Rand Paul. I'm very disappointed in Rand Paul. I get disappointed in these people really easy because I just know that they're full of it. From my perspective, when I was talking about COVID earlier in the show and Rand Paul trying to say that, COVID was this big thing. It was made in a laboratory. It killed millions of people around the world. I just don't see it through that lens. And I was somebody who paid attention to it from the very beginning. What killed people ultimately was, number one, they had a respiratory virus. If they were overweight or had multiple different ailments, when you get any kind of virus, especially a respiratory virus, and you're 150 pounds overweight, you're in danger. You're in danger now. You were in danger then. What changed were the protocols, and what changed were the medications they used to protect you. I think that those things were dangerous. I think Rand Paul not acknowledging remdesivir and ventilators is just depressing to me. It just is. So, injustice for all. COVID. Did we get justice for COVID yet? Is that coming someday? I hope it comes someday. What about this AI and flock safety system? Now, justice would be your Fourth Amendment protections of privacy, what we were talking about with Jeff Jacks. I want to play this clip for you. It's this is Spartanburg. I'm not sure what town this is in. I should have written it down. But this is, if you could see it, this is we talked about it yesterday, but I want to play it for you today. This is an auditorium full of people that are pushing back against AI data centers. The AI data center that they're proposing is right in their backyard. So now they get a sense of what these AI data centers do. So they're coming to speak out about them because they live, all of these people that are in this you're going to hear the audio, but all the people in this auditorium are people that live around these AI data centers. So a man comes to the microphone and he says, how would you like to hear this all day long? Check this out. This is what he does. Now, this is a guy into a microphone making the sound that he hears all day long through these AI data centers. And then the whole crowd starts doing it along with him. Tell me if you'd like to hear this all day in your backyard. So these are people that have experience with AI data centers. Not everybody does. That's one thing I've been worried about was, how do you really push back against AI data centers? Because they're going to tell you they're fantastic. They don't make any noise. There's not going to be a drain on the water supply. There's not going to be a drain on the energy supply. Everything's going to be great. But you have to look at the people that are dealing with it now. What do they say? What are the people that have those big AI data centers, these hyperscale data centers in their backyard? What are they going through? Is it okay? Did they just put the AI data centers in? No big problem. They had a bunch of jobs created. Everything's great. It doesn't appear that the people that are living with the AI data centers like them very much. Because if you could see that video, there's probably, 200-300 people in a room, and they're all saying the same thing. It sucks. They don't like it. The noise is driving them crazy. It never stops. And if they build it in your backyard, this is what you're going to go through. That's what they're saying, not me. But I think we should pay attention to the issues before they get too big. Here is Rep. Eric Burleson from Missouri. Now, he's out in D.C. now. Eric Burleson was talking about flock cameras, and Eric Burleson says the right things. He is against flock safety cameras. Let me pull this up for you real fast. This is Rep. Eric Burleson in D.C. on flock safety cameras. This is what he has to say. Eric Burleson.
Texted in, this may be out of your wheelhouse, but asking your thoughts on flock cameras.
Oh, I hate them.
Okay.
I think they're an encroachment of our privacy. I don't like a government that's spying on us. I think you heard me give a speech at the Republic event about this. We are celebrating 250 years of a group of people who decided that it's more important to be free from a tyrannical government than to be safe.
Yeah.
And yet we constantly have this debate where people say, well, if we want to be safe, we're going to let law enforcement spy on us. If we're going to be safe, we're going to let them take our firearms away. Right? All of these kind of arguments that come forward, if you let law enforcement at any branch, whether it's, the FBI, the ATF, your local sheriff, your local police, if they're the ones deciding how much freedom you're going to have, you're not going to have a whole lot of freedom. At the end of the day, thank God we had our founding fathers step in and give us the provisions of the Constitution. And those included the ability for them to have to get a warrant before they spy on you. Yeah. That they can't just search your vehicle. They can't just listen to your phone conversations. That they can't just take your firearms. And so I would say to every lawmaker, be bold. Stand up for the Constitution that you swore an oath to, and don't just kowtow to law enforcement every time. And I love law enforcement. I'll give them all the resources in the world, but their job is to protect our rights.
I agree 100%. And is it justice when here is Eric Burleson, and anybody that understands the Constitution should recognize that if you're putting cameras all over society, on side streets, on main roads, on the highways, and they can track your license plate from one point to the next, store that information. You have to understand where AI is taking these things. They can store the information, and people have to come to terms with this. If the government, who is not your buddy, as COVID all showed us, as the climate change activists all showed us, as Jeffrey Winehouse has proven to us in Missouri, if the government isn't your buddy when you speak out against their tyrannical nature, well, that government, you're going to give them the right to spy on you indefinitely if this doesn't change. Does the government have the right to put out these safety cameras to give you more security, supposedly, at the same time tracking and storing the information about every move that you make? It seems insane, and as Eric Burleson was saying, that's an affront to our Fourth Amendment constitutional right to privacy. Yet, nobody seems to see it that way. Even people within the Republican Party. These are easy ones. This is not difficult for people. This is not hard to understand. This is not something you have to explain to anybody that understands the Constitution. This is either, do you trust the Constitution, or do you want to usurp the Constitution because you think this is a good policy, because you think human behavior will change and you think it's going to be safer? Which is more important to these legislators, the Constitution or their gut feeling that the sheriff told them they need more flock cameras so they can catch bad guys? Which is more important? And the answer should always be the Constitution. One of the reasons we love Bryant Wolfen here in the state of Missouri is the Constitution is first. The Constitution is key. Let me move over to the A10 guy. How many people are watching this on the app? Do you guys know this this guy that's putting out videos? I think it's called the 10th Amendment Center. If you know who this guy is, let me know. I see somebody says, but Heather Overstreet says it's fine. I think Heather, quite honestly, is working with the Republican Party. You have to look at her as though she is championing GOP initiatives. Really think that's where it's coming from. And whether that's good or bad, you can make your own determination on that. I think she sees the Democrats as taking us down the wrong road, and she sees the Republicans as the righteous policymakers. And I think she's going to support Republican ideas. When I met Heather, I think she's going to be great. I think Heather will ultimately figure out what's going on, and she'll make her decisions, and her viewpoint of the world will grow and grow and grow, like we all do when we're, she's a young lady, smart, sharp, bold. She'll figure these things out. I don't want to get into a conversation about Heather, but I disagree with her on the AI data centers. Quite honestly, I mean, with no protections, you got to have some protections for the AI data centers. And if you don't know who Heather Overstreet is, she's a social media influencer who is on the radio time slot that I used to be in St. Louis. So a lot of people pay attention to what she has to say. Let me go into this A10 conversation. I want to play a couple clips here. The first one is, it talks about slow grinding government, getting things done in a step-by-step manner. What I was saying earlier about this show and about what we're doing with People's Lobby Missouri is I think people want immediate results when you get into politics. And this is a large engine of money, connections, business, and personal relationships. It is an enormous engine that we're trying to take it out of drive and put it in reverse and bring it back into the Constitution. Not easy to do. And the founding fathers talked about it. They said it's inches at a time. You got to turn the boat around nice and slow, turn that boat around and start inching to liberty and justice for all. Doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy. And you can't get discouraged, because what happens more than not is people want that instant gratification, because that's the society we live in. You're hungry, go get some McDonald's, right? You want to be entertained, turn on your television set. Anything you want to do is instant now, and we've got into a culture where everything is quick and easy. Therefore, the hard slog, the grind of every day and getting up, and for me, putting on a show, trying to put events together, trying to raise money, trying to come up with marketing schemes, trying to connect to people that are on the same side of the fence as you. That is a long haul. This is not easy. And this guy explains it quite well. Here is the 10th Amendment Center talking about states' rights and government in general. Check it out. If I can get them.
From the largest government.
Here we go.
Getting from the largest government in history to a real land of the free won't be easy, and it's definitely not going to be quick. No chance. As Thomas Jefferson put it, the ground of liberty is to be gained by inches. We must be contented to secure what we can get from time to time and eternally press forward for what is yet to get.
Nailed it. I didn't recognize that when I got into this game, I must admit. I didn't see it through that lens. But now that I'm in it, every small step in the right direction, I feel, is a great victory. Everybody you bring back into the fold, every politician that disagrees with me, that has a conversation with me, I see that as a win. Every little inch forward that we get is a win. And I just want to remind everybody who is involved in People's Lobby Missouri, and I'm not talking about the people that are working with it, but I'm talking about the people that donate or the people that are interested in what we're doing. We will get things done. I promise you, we're going to get things done. But I got to convince people that think I'm crazy that I'm not crazy. I have to convince people that these really are constitutional liberties that we are sacrificing for the good of big money in Jefferson City. I have to convince people that that is real. Most of the population, if you're watching this show, you got to spread the word. That's why I say, please like and share. I appreciate it so much when people that listen to the show on a daily basis, or if you're just checking in, if you like and share the information, we get more people to pay attention. If you get it to 100 people, 2 might stick with it. We get a 2% return. We get out to 10,000, right? We got 200 people. We get out to 100,000. You know what I'm saying? You get grow it and grow it and grow it. And all of a sudden, we're going to be sending out emails to thousands of people. And when we want to have a rally in Jefferson City, if we want to have a Zoom call, if we want to have a Spaces call, and we want to share information that changes the course of politics, we can do it. But it is step by step by step by step. It is not an overnight success. It's not going to happen. This is going to be a slow, treacherous, one step in front of the other movement. And I just believe that after watching this for quite some time, that is the methodology. All right, let me go to one other from the 10th Amendment Center. This is cheerleading policies. I talked about this with Jeffrey Jacks, and I just thought this was beautiful. This is what Bryant Wolfen, state rep in Missouri, talks about all the time. He says, Rob, I sometimes vote against things that I think is good policy. I would like that policy, but I know it's not constitutional. Therefore, I have to vote against it. And he talks about it openly. He said, my job and what I sign up for is to defend the Constitution, which means, in a nutshell, defending your rights from a government that wants to outthink the Constitution. We're smarter than the Constitution. Therefore, in this particular instance, we don't have to pay attention to it. Dangerous, 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 dangerous way to look at things, in my humble opinion. And he explains it quite nicely. Let me get this up again. No Isaiah, so I'm working to figure this out. All right, here we go. Same guy talking about cheering policies over the Constitution.
It's a trap. George Washington warned us. When you cheer on politicians violating the Constitution because you like the policy, that's the go-to weapon for tyrants to destroy freedom. He said, let there be no change by usurpation. For though this, in one instance, may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed.
Make sense? And I love this because it goes back to the founding fathers and how they organized our government, what it was supposed to mean. When they say a government of, by, and for the people, that's what it means. Of, by, and for the people. Does it feel like it's of, by, and for the people anymore? Do you think that COVID was of, by, and for the people? Do you think leaving our borders open to let 20, 30 million people in from around the world to come in and destroy our safety net and destroy our infrastructure, is that of, by, and for the people? Do you think the people of the country at some point said, you know what? What we should do is we should start wars all over the world. And then wherever we start the wars, what we'll do is we'll leave our borders open. We'll call them terrorists. We'll leave our borders open. Let's let them cross into our interior. And then we'll give them phones and housing and food for free from the people that paid for the war. Now they'll pay for the enemies that came through the southern border who were affected by the war. Does that make any sense to anybody? Of course not. It's ridiculous. And that is why you can know without any reservations whatsoever that this government that we have right now is not a government of, by, and for the people. It's a government of, by, and for big corporations, big multinational corporations, big banking interests. That is what it's all about. And it is protected by our government puppets and by intelligence agencies. That's the system in a nutshell. And any close observation of the system will take you to that conclusion. So we have to stop it. And you have to stop it by getting involved. You have to pay attention to what's going on. I don't want to preach. I don't want to sound preachy, but it just drives me nuts that you can kind of see where the country's going. Nobody knows that it's happening because we don't have a press. And we don't have a press because it's big corporate press. And then guys like Rand Paul and Josh Hawley go on these corporate news outlets nonstop. I can't get them on to have an hour with me and really let me ask them some questions. They do represent the people of Missouri. Or I couldn't get Josh Hawley, and I don't want to bash on Josh Hawley, but I have to here for just a minute if that's okay. I got pictures with Josh Hawley. I went to his events. I stumped for him. I know Bill knows because Bill didn't like him. I got somebody in the app right now. Bill didn't like him from the very beginning and was giving me trouble about stumping for Josh Hawley. But I did. And then I go on to Real Talk Radio 93.3, and I want to get Josh Hawley on the show. I talked to his chief of staff. I talked to people around him. Oh, yeah, Josh is going to come on for sure. You just didn't get to the right person. I'm like, am I the right person now? They go, you got the right person now. I said, I just want to interview him. Here's the things that I want to talk about. Crickets. Never hear another word. Why? Why would the person that is got your best interest at heart be so opposed to having a conversation? I don't try to do get you questions with people. I want to ask them and see how they feel about certain issues that are important to Missourians. They want nothing to do with you. Why is that? Why is Josh Hawley constantly on Fox News? Why is it that you see all of the establishment people on Fox News routinely despite the fact that any close observation of Fox News would tell you that they are just a propaganda outlet to sell war, combining war with patriotism. That's what Fox News does. They wait for the next war. They trot out Sean Hannity, and they'll start telling you why bombing any particular country is patriotic. And if you disagree with bombing that particular country, then you're a traitor to your nation. That's what they sell if you're not paying attention. It doesn't mean they don't fight for conservative issues 90% of the time. They're talking about conservative issues that matter. But the what they do ultimately is throw a blanket over the news you need to know and exploit the things you don't need to know. That is Fox News in a nutshell. And I don't like when people go on there. Let's be honest. I don't like it. Kind of takes me off their page. If I see people going on Fox News routinely, I know where they're going. They're not coming out to give you information. They're going on that platform to sell BS. And as we said with Rand Paul, was he not selling BS? And how would you know Rand Paul except for him going on Fox News routinely? That is the game. And I got another story I want to share with you. It's the Israel situation, right? We've been talking a lot about Israel, and people get mad at me at times, especially within the Republican Party that thinks Israel can do no wrong. Fine. But when we combine our technologies and our infrastructure with Israel, wouldn't that be a traitor to your nation? How do people see it? If you're a fan of Israel, just from a constitutional standpoint, does it make sense to you that within legislation we should be combining our assets with Israel? Should we be combining assets with Israel when you know that Israel bombed the USS Liberty on purpose? We've had those people on many times. Everybody knows that story. Is that dangerous? Is that in the best interest of American citizens to combine technologies and our infrastructure and our militaries with Israel? I don't think so. Let me play Ro Khanna here for you real fast. Ro Khanna put out a clip. Everybody know Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is a Democrat who kind of up with Thomas Massey. They were trying to get to the bottom of the Jeffrey Epstein files and the like. Just think he does a nice job of putting clips out there. I'm not a fan of Ro Khanna. I'm not endorsing Ro Khanna. I'm not turning Democrat for Ro Khanna. I'm just saying what he's trying to get accomplished, apparently, even if it's just in words and not deeds, what he's saying makes a lot of sense to me. Check out what Ro Khanna has to say about us now joining, the United States joining military technologies and intelligence with Israel. Ro Khanna.
Congress has blocked Thomas Massey and my amendment to prevent the integration of our military with Israel. This is unconscionable. They're not even giving us a vote on the amendment. Thomas and I will continue to fight to make sure we don't compromise American sovereignty. Congress has blocked Thomas Massey.
It's unbelievable what's happening in this world. And again, I think people like us, people that listen to the show on a daily basis, or people that pay attention to what's going on in the world, isn't it frustrating that nobody else knows? I'm starting to recognize that really smart people in my life, very accomplished people in my life, I'll have conversations about this stuff, people I haven't talked to in years and years and years, and they know absolutely nothing about what's going on in the world around them. Isn't that sad? Am I the only one that recognizes that? You know, because it goes back to the Obama clip that I used to always play, where Obama said, it's not about lies. Propaganda isn't just organized lies. Propaganda is throwing so much information out there that nobody has any idea what to believe. And I find that to be true. I see that happening now. Somebody in the one of our listeners says in the chat, Supreme Court of the United States supports birthright citizenship and mail-in ballots, and Trump signed yet another executive order while Congress continues to refuse to pass laws. I don't see lasting success for MAGA. It's that leads me right. Who are you, Thomas? I want to say thank you very much, because it leads me right into the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is people want to go through the justice system to figure things out. There is no justice. That's the title of the show, Injustice for All. There is no justice. Justice is a figment of your imagination. It is the propaganda that has been sold to you by this country. If there was justice, Jeff Winehouse would be out of jail tomorrow. All the people that need to know that are in power about Jeffrey Winehouse's case, they already know. They know that he was railroaded. They know that there was an assassination attempt on his life. They know that they trumped up charges just to search his home and take his phones and computers on a trumped up marijuana. I smell marijuana in your house, therefore I'll take all of your electronics away from you, and I'll study every conversation that you've had over the last 10 years. That'll work. That's Missouri politics right now. There is no justice. It's the same thing I say to the MMTLP people. They keep thinking they're going to get to the right person in Washington, D.C. They're going to get the right attorney. They're going to get this done. They're getting a letter to the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. The only thing, just, do your thing. But if you don't like the direction that it's heading, if you don't like your liberties being stolen from you, then you have to create pressure on these people. Remember the old saying, when your government fears you, you live in liberty. When you fear your government, you live in tyranny. I would ask you, do you fear your government, or do you think that your government fears you at this point in time? Does it look like the Republican Party in the state of Missouri is concerned about whether you're upset or not? If you're in the grassroots, does it seem like they care very much? Doesn't feel that way to me. And it doesn't feel that way anywhere in the country. I'm in Florida. It's the same thing going on here. I think the political scene in Florida is better than Missouri. I really do. But it ain't much different. The only difference we have in Florida is Ron DeSantis. And I don't love Ron DeSantis. I don't think he's the greatest governor in the world or any of that. But Ron DeSantis takes the grassroots agenda and begins to sell it to the people of Florida. Whether he gets it accomplished, that's a whole different story. It could be all just, nonsense. But the grassroots initiatives in Florida, those are the initiatives that Ron DeSantis uses the bully pulpit to explain. Same thing Kehoe should be doing. Same thing Donald Trump should be doing. You have to stay focused. You can't give people 95 different things to think about and go solve them all. You start by a step-by-step process and you say, these are the things that are wrong. And I, as governor of Missouri, want to fix these things. I, as the president of the United States, want to fix these things. And here is the order that we want to get them done. And I'm going to use the bully pulpit to talk about it every single day. I will drive this narrative until we get it solved. I'm going to drive the narrative that the elections are being stolen. I'm going to talk about it every day. There won't be a press conference where at the very end of it, I go, and you're not free if you don't have your elections. Just think if Donald Trump did that. Just think of every time Donald Trump comes onto your TV screen on Fox News or Newsmax or OAN or CNN or ABC, CBS, NBC, the Washington Post, the New York Times, all of them. Every single time that he spoke, if at the very end of it, he said, now remember, if you don't take care of your elections, you're not free. Don't forget that. At the end of every press conference, at the end of every interview, remember everybody, if you don't take care of your elections, you're not free. What if he just did that? Do you think that Donald Trump, who understands marketing better than any president in the history of this country, you think that he doesn't understand the power of his words? You think that he doesn't understand the power that he has to change the direction of this country? And why, I just continue to ask, would elections not be at the top of the agenda? Because you can't solve your problems until you solve the election issue. And I think everybody sees it, knows it, but nothing seems to change. Nothing goes down. Crystal, every time Trump speaks in the same format, bash the prior administration, talk about how big and great we are, ramble a lot, avoid questions. I see it the same way. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the bad guy. I'm not. Like I said, he could be playing 5D chess, and I'm not smart enough to see it. That's very possible. I admit that 100%. But as a relatively normal person, when I look at what's going on, I say, I've been an executive in my life. I've had 25 people saying, hey, we need to do this. We got to make our business. And you get all this information. Everybody's pulling at you and they're trying to get things in front of you because they want to make change. I look at Donald Trump and I look at Mike Kehoe and I look at all these people in power and I say, well, wait a minute. The number one issue we have to change is elections. Why aren't we talking about that every single day? Every chance you get, fix the elections. I wonder how people see it. That's how I see it. I don't quite understand it. I don't understand the connection to Israel. I don't understand why we're combining our intelligence agencies. None of this makes any sense to me. More injustice. Thomas Massie. So Thomas Massie, you may remember, and I'm going to get into all these subjects that I think are injustice. Thomas Massie was, when he was in the House, he said that $17 million had been spent to keep people in D.C. from telling their stories, non-disclosure agreements, from telling their stories about sexual improprieties, aggressive sexual misconduct within our government in D.C. And he said $17 million has been spent to keep these people quiet. Then you have the Jeffrey Epstein case. Then you had all the child trafficking information. How can government officials be able to spend $17 million of your taxpayer money to keep those who claim sexual improprieties by people in Congress? How can that money be used to keep them quiet? How can your money be used to protect people in government from accusations of sexual misconduct. Is that justice? Do you see that as justice? Do you think that at some point the people of America went, you know what we want to do? What we want to do is if you start playing grab ass with one of the interns and she turns around and goes, hey, what are you doing? I'm going to file a complaint against you. And you go, no. Don't file a complaint. Let's get you some money. Would $25,000 make it go? What, 50? 50? Okay, I'll give you the 50,000. You can't bring this up because it's going to mess me up politically. And then they take money from you to pay off these people. Is that a system that you like? Because that's the system you're in. Would a government of, by, and for the people give $17 million to keep people quiet who claim that representatives in our government were aggressive in a sexual nature towards them? No. That would never happen, but it happens in our country. Here is Thomas Massie trying to put forth a resolution to make all that information become public. So if you were paying out money to keep a young lady or a young man quiet because of sexual improprieties, he wants that information out to the public. And I again ask you, if it's a government of, by, and for the people, wouldn't we all know what was going on? Hang on, let me get that to you real fast. Press the wrong one. Here we go. It's Thomas Massie.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. Directing the Committee on Ethics to preserve and publicly release records relating to monetary settlements involving acts of sexual harassment, whereas transparency is essential for accountability in government, whereas sexual harassment and unwelcome sexual advances by members, delegates, or residents commissioners in violation of Clause 9 and Clause 18 of Rule 23 of the Rules of the House affect the safety, dignity, and the integrity of the proceedings of the House of Representatives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that with respect to reviews, investigations, or matters which the Committee on Ethics or the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights have reviewed, conducted, or facilitated, the Committee on Ethics and the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights shall, not later than 60 days after the adoption of this resolution, make publicly available a single consolidated list that sets forth separately for each member, delegate, or resident commissioner the name of each member, delegate, or resident commissioner who was the subject of any review or investigation involving a violation of Clause 9 of Rule 23 of the Rules of the House of Representatives as it pertains to acts of sexual harassment, or Clause 18 of Rule 23 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, or any case involving sexual harassment or sexual abuse if it resulted in a payment of taxpayer funds, and adjacent to each such name, the total amount of taxpayer funds included in all settlements, payments, reimbursements, awards, or other financial considerations paid in connection with such matters.
Is it not amazing what's going on in the country when you really just forget your own life, whether your life has changed over the last 10 years or 20 years, or you're about the same place you were, maybe it's a little less, maybe it's more stressful than it was. But if you just see the things that are going on that are being talked about in our government, doesn't it just drive you? Has been spent, taxpayer money, to keep quiet people that made claims against representatives in our government of sexual abuse. $17 million. COVID. Everybody is starting to recognize that all the information is coming out about COVID after the fact, no doubt. Coming out after the fact. None of these media companies are going to be in trouble. None of the pharmaceutical companies are going to be in trouble. Nobody's going to be in trouble at the end of the day. Nothing's going to happen. Borders wide open. That's a constitutional duty of the federal government to keep our borders, protect us from invasion. And by their own numbers, they're saying 15 to 30 million people are here illegally. That's unconstitutional, right? Anything going to be done? There's no justice in society anymore. None. How do you live in a society where if you get on the wrong side of the politics, they can destroy you? I give you Jeffrey Winehouse. If you're trying to tell the truth on social media, they restrict your ability to spread a message. But if you're willing to go along with any particular initiative by the corporations, you can not only get rich, you can get famous, and people will love you for being completely full of shit. It's a crazy society that we're living in. Truth seekers get marginalized, and con artists get expanded media coverage.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
Depressing. Although we're going to have a great day today. Just giving you the information as I see it. You can do whatever you want with it, but that's the way I see it. Let's go to the MK Ultra conversation that's going on. We've talked about MK Ultra many times on this show. I told you about the book by Tom O'Neill called Chaos, where he talks about MK Ultra being involved with the Charles Manson story. Now, I am somebody who knows that Charles Manson story backwards and forwards. I've told that story too many times to talk about it again, but I know the Charles Manson case as well as Tom O'Neill or anybody else because I've been studying it since I was in high school. When Tom O'Neill said there was a connection to MK Ultra, let me lay that out for you very quickly. Then we're going to play Tom O'Neill. He was giving testimony to Anna Paulina Luna because Anna Paulina Luna says she's going to lay out all of the MK Ultra information. Now, you got to remember, it's all nonsense. Our government doesn't do those types of things. You can get nuggets of information that may help you, but there will never be any repercussions for the people in government. The government is there to protect itself from you. It's supposed to be defending you. It's supposed to be working for you, but the system is now designed to protect itself from you. That's a fact, Jack. Trust me when I tell you. So Chaos, this book by Tom O'Neill, talks about how Charles Manson, who was in prison from the age of 16 to age 32, was in California prisons when the MK Ultra experiments were being issued by the government itself in Florida. This is what he claims. Charles Manson gets out. He ends up in the Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco, and he claims that his parole officer and a guy by the name of Jolly West had worked out of the same building. Nobody at the time knew that Jolly West was somebody who had extensive research into MK Ultra. Ultra experiments for the CIA, and said, I have perfected the ability to plant memories in somebody's head that wasn't there and to take out memories that are there. Would that be MK Ultra? If through some kind of hypnosis or some kind of drug along with hypnosis or repetition or however they put this into your brain, he was saying he had perfected the technique to put in memories and take out memories. This is Jolly West. Then we find out after Jolly West dies that he was a part of the MK Ultra experiments and he was involved with Jack Ruby, potentially Sirhan, Charles Manson, and others. And then you go back and you look at Sirhan, Jack Ruby, and the like, and they all have this kind of brain that doesn't remember anything that happened. They don't know why they did it. Then it starts to make sense. So the MK Ultra story is going to be whitewashed by our government. They're going to tell you they're looking into it. They're going to do what they always do, which gives you just enough information to irritate you, but nothing you can act upon. That's what's going to go down. Here is Tom O'Neill. This is the guy that wrote the book Chaos, which everybody should read. That should be required reading. That should be in our high schools, and you should have to read Chaos, how the CIA and the Manson story are linked together. Chaos by Tom O'Neill. And I've been going back and forth with Tom O'Neill, by the way. If you're a daily listener, I've been trying to get Tom O'Neill on the show. Come on, Tom. I think the guy is he's writing a second book, and I think he is just so busy that he has not been doing many interviews, but he did testify before Anna Paulina Luna on the MK Ultra story. Here is Tom O'Neill. Check it out.
In your expert opinion that Jack Ruby and Manson were assets of the intelligence agencies specifically pertaining to MK Ultra? Were they MK Ultra victims?
Yeah, theoretically, Manson,
Can we start over? Listen to that one more time.
Is it in your expert opinion that Jack Ruby and Manson were assets of the intelligence agencies specifically pertaining to MK Ultra? Were they MK Ultra victims?
Yeah, theoretically, Manson, I've never been able to prove absolutely. Jack Ruby, I believe, this is something else. The Warren Commission investigation on the Warren Commission was Alan Dulles, the former CIA director, who authorized and ran MK Ultra until he was fired by President Kennedy. The liaison to the committee for the CIA, who handled the information coming from the CIA back and forth to the Warren Commission, was Richard Helms, who was a direct supervisor of Jolly West. They knew who West was. They knew that what West was capable of and what they had paid him to do and what he had reported to them that he could do, including inducing mental disorders in people. That was never disclosed to the commission as far as anyone knows. So I believe that West was put in there to keep Jack Ruby from telling his story.
Wow. In closing, I just want to thank you all for being here today. And we will be following up, Dr. Kinzer, on your request to fully redact. I'll be following up personally with the director of the CIA.
Let me explain to you why I say this is injustice. Title of the show is Injustice for All. This is why I say this is injustice. That information's already out there. We already all know that. Anybody that read the book Chaos, that information has been over podcasts. He's been on Joe Rogan show. All the information that he just gave to Anna Paulina is public knowledge. We all know that already. This is Anna Paulina's crack operation to tell us about MK Ultra and what scientists are able to do with the mind. That's what they're giving us. Does that make any sense to anybody? Again, our government is a puppet show. Where's my Warenberg? Let me find it here real fast, just so people remember when I do this. Our government is a puppet show right now, and you've got to get through the elections, you got to get through the big money, you got to get through the media, you got to get through the technology, and you have to enforce your will upon your government so that it returns back to a constitutional government. I beg of you. It can't all be entertainment. You got to get involved at some point. And I ask that you go to peopleslobbymo.com. Sign up. If you can donate, great. If you can't, sign up. The more people that think like us, the more people that get involved, the more we're able to show people that what we're talking about is real, the better off we are going to be in the long run. And, you might save the country for your kids and grandkids, because it is time to shine in the show me state, if you understand what I'm saying. All right, let me get to some advertisers here very quickly, and then we'll bring in Brad Patty. I like this Brad Patty. I'd be curious to see what he's got to say today. We'll ask him some questions about what he wants to do if he goes off into D.C. and represents the state of Missouri. RocketCareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. For all the medium to small businesses out there, if human resources just simply does not get you great candidates for your business, go to RocketCareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. I can personally vouch for these people. Mitch has been a friend of mine since we were in high school. His business partner, Brian, these are great people who get excited about helping you launch a new career. They love it. They love helping businesses. They love to be the liaison between employer and employee. They're different than the big corporations who don't really care. If you're a difficult customer for a big corporation, have fun with that. These guys are going to work their tail off to make sure that they get the right candidates for your business. And if you're out of work or hate your job, that they will brush up your resume. They'll show you all the different techniques, and they can use their network to get you in front of a new employer that can help you launch a new career and therefore improve your life. RocketCareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. You can reach them at 636-778-2419, 636-778-2419, Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com. Then we have Grace Halling, GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com. It's our good friend Gary Schneider. Pride themselves. This is a business. If you're in St. Charles County, Missouri, you're going to see these cans and everywhere. I want them to be really everywhere. I want to see nothing but Grace Halling cans and dumpsters and trucks, because they're just such great people. They do so much for the state of Missouri. Outstanding customer service, competitive pricing. If you're a commercial customer, 2, 4, 6, and 8-yard dumpsters. If you're a residential customer, always remember trash pickup, recyclables, yard waste, and bulk pickups. It is GraceHalling.com. 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 Gary, what do you want me to say about your business? He said, Rob, but for the grace of God, I would not have such a thriving business. GraceHalling.com. And then you heard him yesterday. I think we had him on for almost 2 hours yesterday. Rick Bavitz. For all of your financial needs, if you're nearing retirement, you got to get a hold of Rick Bavitz. Rick Bavitz he's somewhat of a genius. Financial advisor. This is a different kind of animal here with Rick Bavitz, right? Financial planning expert. He is a fiduciary. Him at 314-671-0525. 314-671-0525, or you can check him out at yourcaringadvisor.com. All right. Just a couple more things I want to get to very quickly. When I said it is all a puppet show up there in D.C., I want you to hear this. This is what Elon Musk put out the other day. So Elon Musk put this out. We talked about it just a bit yesterday, but I didn't play the sound for you. This is Elon Musk putting out a video where AOC answered an ad to be an actress that parlayed her into being a House rep who the Democrats are now championing to be the next president of the United States. And I'm going to I don't know what's going on with that. That shouldn't be happening, these little breakups. But here is what Elon Musk put out into the world yesterday on X, talking about AOC being. Check it out.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not really the Congresswoman of New York's 14th Congressional District. She is essentially an actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York Congresswoman. I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me. In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother, Gabriel, submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect. Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant then. I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman.
What you're hearing here is absolutely true. AOC is a political actor, and it is confirmed by multiple sources. What happened was in 2017, Justice Democrats, formed by Bernie Sanders, put out a public casting call for nominations for a congressional candidate. They had over 10,000 nominations. Her brother is the one who submitted her name into the application. She wasn't even interested. She's only in there because her brother submitted the application for her.
Kind of incredible, right? And this was posted by Elon Musk yesterday. So this information had been out there for quite some time. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know if it was AI generated. It seemed so crazy to me that I didn't really want to get into it. I made mention of it on a previous show, but Elon Musk put this out there. He got tens of millions of views now. And it shows AOC talking openly about being cast as a U.S. Congresswoman. Make of that what you will. I don't know what to make of it, but it is kind of crazy, you must admit. All right. As promised, we're going to bring in Brad Patty. Let me give you just a little background on Brad Patty if you're just joining the show. We were out in Osage County. I was emceeing an event out there. Republicans were giving 5-minute speeches about what they wanted to do, their candidates, what they wanted to do if elected, what their background was, who they were, introducing themselves to Republican voters and some Republican advocacy groups out in Osage. And the one speech, the one presentation that caught my attention was Brad Patty. Then I went up and asked him, I said, what's your background? 25 years in the military. He was raised in the foster care system. But he just has the kind of an it factor to me. I don't know what it is, but you kind of recognize talent when you see it. And I have a sense that Brad Patty is the real deal. And I loved he had but he wanted to make sure that you understood that although he is not in politics at the moment, that experience came from his military background, and he laid out his military background with what he would do as a political instrument in DC. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring in Brad Patty to the show. Brad, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I was very impressed. I'm not easy to impress, as you might understand, but I was impressed with what you had to say because you have a, in my opinion, I'll let people make their determination as we get through the conversation here. But in my opinion, you have a calm about you, not an arrogance, but a belief in what you're trying to get accomplished, which is very interesting. When I heard your story with the being brought up in the foster care system, that kind of caught me. I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting because normally, you think about foster care kids and they get bounced around and they do not have that confidence. I'm going to guess that you had a good family, number one. And number two, when you went into the military, all of those attributes that the military tries to bring out in people, it worked with you. Give me just a little background of who you are. We got plenty of time. So your experience in the foster care system, why you went into the military, what you learned in the military, and then we'll get to some questions about what you want to do when you go to Washington, D.C.
Sure. So you're correct. I was raised in the foster care system, and you're also correct. I did land in a good family. Initially, I bounced around a little bit, back and forth, but I entered the foster care system at the age of 6 years old. Bounced around, like I said, a little bit, and then I ended up landing with a good family and finished out my teenage years with them. And then after that, I decided to join the military. I was told an interesting fact. I'm not sure if it's true, but they said about 80% of foster kids join the military or some uniformed service, police officers, firemen, etc., because they have a yearning to be a part of a team. I'm not sure if that statistic is true, but I would say it's true for me. I was looking to be a part of something bigger, accomplish something bigger, and make something out of my life. And the Army offered that for me. So when the recruiter naturally approached me, I went ahead and accepted. I joined as a combat mechanic. I've explained that a combat mechanic is kind of like a combat medic. Instead of fixing soldiers under fire, I was fixing the tanks under fire because those also have to get off the battlefield. I served for 25 years. I enjoyed every moment of it. And you are correct that it definitely taught me leadership. My parents taught me confidence in my beliefs. And then the Army taught me how to basically harness that and become a leader and influence others in order to share your beliefs. And that is where military is so well qualified, in my opinion. The leadership aspects of military in order to naturally run into, I don't like the word politics, but I would say service, being a representative of the people. I think that's where it's a good branch. I'll throw in one little tidbit. After World War II, 1/3 of Congress was veterans. So being a veteran makes you highly qualified. That number is diminished, I believe, below 15% now. Not saying that's the sole problem with Congress, but I think more veterans can be helpful. So that would be how I got into the military, some of my leadership attributes. And then from there, I have much more of my story to tell. I don't know how far you would like me to go down the path, but I can go all the way to me filing for office.
If you find it interesting to your story, I want to give you plenty of time because I want to understand you. Like I said, I always think about what I would look like as a candidate. I don't know if I'd be good or bad at it, but you kind of always say, if I was to run for office, how would I go about communicating with people? And you do it different than me. I'm a little bit more of an entertainer. I try to entertain. You are very methodical, patient, and you use your 5 minutes very wisely for me, because when you got done, I'm like, okay, this is a guy that says my military experience has leadership qualities that are needed in Washington, D.C., and here is each one of my leadership skills. And you just walked them through, and I thought, man, that's really, for 5 minutes, like I understood who Brad Patty was after 5 minutes, which I thought was fantastic, and I just thought it was bright the way you went about it. So anything that you find relevant that will get voters to understand what you're going to Washington, D.C. to accomplish, I think is fantastic.
Sure. So we all know that Washington, D.C. puts tremendous pressure on every single representative up there. It's going to come. We have a lot of different candidates running, and I'm running. The difference between me and the other candidates is that I'm going to be drawing my votes, my opinion, my character from past experiences. And that's what I've injected into my so-called stump speech. So I'll continue and explain who I am. So like I said, I served 25 years. I have deployed to Iraq. So I understand the cost and the issues in the Middle East. I didn't deploy as a commander, as a colonel. I wasn't in a tent way back where I was a combat mechanic, boots on the ground as a sergeant. So nothing fancy. I'm an enlisted man. Secondly, I stood a post at the Korean DMZ. I have seen the successes of having, a strong border. that can stop from invasions coming in, of course, armies, but also ideologies and other attributes. You got to have a secure border. So the other aspect is I am married with 6 children. And so I understand affordability. I understand having to pay the bills. I didn't have a colonel's salary. I had a sergeant's salary. My wife is from El Salvador. She came here legally. So immigration is yet another issue that, I would be drawing my opinions from. My opinion on that briefly is that the standard for immigration is what my in-laws did. And that's the correct way. I'm not coming from one side or the other side and trying to win a debate. It's very simple. The immigrants that have came here legally are following the law. That's the standard. And people have done it successfully. My wife and her family had to pay a degree of a price. They were separated for many years, but they did it the correct way. So when I go to DC and I deal with immigration, obviously I'm going to be concluding some of my opinions based on my experiences and what I've shared with my family. I would say that one of my frustrations in doing this is that I am seeing individuals say I'm an experienced politician. And one of my lines that I use is this. I said, experienced politician, that is the last thing that we need to send to Washington, D.C. Someone who knows how to navigate and has connections to Washington, D.C. They have dark money attached to them. They have political obligations. They have big donors. And that's what some of my opponents are touting as a good thing. You didn't hear this, Rob, but it was in a different discussion and debate in Johnson County. I had one of the opponents was touting about all of their endorsements. And my response was, everyone raise your hand if you trust a politician. And of course, nobody raised their hand. Right. And I said, only a politician can sit here with a straight face and say, I've got a bunch of other politicians who want me to be the next level of politician and think that's a good thing. I look at the irony of that. And I don't think that we need experience. I think we need character in Washington, D.C. That's why there's distrust there.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I gotta break in there because you just say something that that I talk about with my friends that are candidates. I talk about the endorsements. If you're a first-time candidate, endorsements are really big to you. It's name recognition. Okay, this is a political person. They're endorsing me. That means I mean something. But I think it's more self-gratification than it is anything else because I'm with you. If I see a big politician or a name brand politician endorsing somebody who's never ran for office before, that doesn't really mean anything to me. I would say I'm endorsed by the people of District 5, right? That's what I would say. I'm endorsed by the people of District 5 because politicians have gotten us into this problem. Even the good ones who don't stand up and knock over tables and scream and yell, they've gotten us into a position that, there's a lot of distrust in government. There's a lot of distrust in the media. There's a lot of distrust in the education system. There's a lot of markets. There's distrust everywhere. The institutions that make this country great, now everybody is questioning them. And they're questioning because of the politics of the day. Nobody knows what to believe or who to believe in anymore. Nobody thinks that they're working for the citizens' best interest. And it's really depressing because that's not where we want our country to be. We need leaders to go in there and just take the bullets and take the slings and arrows and take all the, because the party will come after you if you're not raising money for them and you're not, following party leadership agendas. They will come after you. And I'm sure you're aware of that. But I think you're right. When you talk about endorsements, it's one thing that I would advise all of my friends out there that are running for office right now. Your endorsement from other big politicians, it's not helpful to you, in my opinion. I think it hurts you more than anything. What you want is an endorsement from the people that you're planning to serve. That's where the endorsement should come from. And that's where I want to ask you a couple questions. GOP, all right? Have they given you any money? Has the leadership of the Republican Party in the state of Missouri looked at you and said, boy, you'd be a great candidate. We'd like to have you in the mix. We're going to give you a chunk of money because we want you right down to the wire in the Republican race. It's District 5, right? It's District 5?
That's correct.
District 5. How has the GOP party handled you?
So I was approached by political advisors to go ahead and run for Congress. And they said, hey, would you like to run? Now, they're not necessarily a part of the Republican Party, but and I went ahead and said yes after some thought. And I said, yes, I'll go ahead and run for Congress. Since I've ran, I've received no money from the Republican Party. I haven't been rejected by them. I haven't been embraced by them. And I can't speak for them, but I get the impression that they don't know how to handle me. And they don't know if I am, what type of politician, quote unquote, air quotes, politician I am. Where is my loyalty? And there's a couple reasons. One, I just got out of the Army. I retired 12 months ago. And retiring 12 months ago, I haven't ran for office. I haven't rubbed elbows with these individuals. So they just don't have a good sense of me. The other one is I continue to express one of the facts of this district, that on the Republican side, we have 5 candidates running. I'm one of them. And I am the only one that lives in the district. I think that personally is a measure of character. I'm not saying that these individuals have no character, but I'm implying that individuals should look into that and factor that in when judging other candidates. But I think that is another factor that I continue to bring up, that I'm the only candidate that actually lives in the district.
How can that be, bro? How do people run outside of their district? Like, can I run for office in Missouri when I live in Florida? It doesn't even make any sense. How does that work? Why would you run?
I can explain. So you have 3 branches of government, and you have 3 levels of government, right? More or less. You got the local, state, and federal. And well, what governs those 3 levels of government is the legislative branch, their constitutions, etc. So on the federal level, it's the U.S. Constitution. State law doesn't necessarily govern that because it's a federal position you're running for. In short, the Constitution says you only have to reside in the state in order to be a representative of the House. Now, with that said, I'd like to tie that to Amendment 4, where we are saying, hey, we've got different views on Amendment 4 within the Republican Party, but I find it ironic that individuals are saying, hey, we don't want to have majority vote. We want to go ahead and have each district represent themselves. We don't want to have outside money coming in order to impact Missouri. I completely agree with that principle. I don't know if you or your audience does, but I agree that Amendment 4 should be passed. But with that said, you can't talk out the other side of your mouth and say, well, I'm allowed to run outside of the district. So we could have all of our House of Representative candidates come from St. Louis. They're all eligible. Should they? That's the question. Should they? Well, yeah, legally you can. Okay, I understand that. And that's the angst in this district. It's already contended because of the boundaries, right? Republicans, Democrats, everybody have different views on it, and it's already contentious. And so now we have 4 candidates that are running as Republicans outside of the district. One of the candidates, Rick Bratton, voted for this map. So he voted for this map. He lives outside of the district, and he's running in the district. That's pretty self-serving. These are the issues where I think the Republican Party has struggled to say, who is Brad Patty? Do we embrace him or not? Where does he stand? And personally, I stand with this, and I'll hand the mic back over to you. The chain of command, when our founding fathers made our nation, the Declaration of Independence says the Creator gives us an inalienable rights. So that means he's above us and gives us rights. And then we give our rights or authority, then we'll pass it down to the government. So the public servant is the lowest ranking individual. And so that's my core belief. If I just stay focused on that, regardless of Republican or Democrat, I believe I'll make an excellent representative.
Excellent. Iraq, I got to ask you that, and then I'm going to get into some of these political issues. You talked about 4, so you're a yes on 4. What was Iraq like? What were the people like? You said you have extensive understanding of what goes on in the Middle East. You know, my show questions the relationship between the United States and Israel. Not that we're Islamists, but that, I just met, and since you're in the military, I guess I'll ask you this question before we get to Iraq. I just went to Washington, D.C., and I did an interview with Thomas Massie. I sat with 15 USS Liberty survivors and watched 80-year-old men. Some of them break down, some of them, they don't have a lot of time left on this earth. And, individual and in front of Massie, they said, listen, we were attacked intentionally, no doubt about it, by the country of Israel. We watched it with our own eyes. We had the American flag above us. We were communicating. They were communicating. They had just flown over us. We got to see them. They looked in our eyes with their planes, and they tried to take our boat out. And they believe it was to bring us into the 6-Day War, if you remember. And, I look at that, and when I talk to these guys, I say, are these military organizations, the UAW or the, I can't even think which one I was asking them about at the time, but I said, are these military organizations, are they backing you? And they said, no, they completely ignore us. And I said, that just seems so odd. I think military members are supposed to support one another. They don't like what he's saying because, from an institutional standpoint, the United States government is aligned with Israel. Therefore, they believe, again, I wasn't there, I'm just telling you what they're telling me. They believe that they were intentionally attacked by Israel. Our country had an understanding of why they were doing it and have tried to hide it for all these years. They told they had to keep their mouths quiet or they would be put in prison, or worse, is the way it was described to them. How do you see that issue just in general? I'm sure you're aware of the USS Liberty, aren't you, Mr. Patty?
Yes, I've heard of it a little bit. And I think the intent of your question is basically what is my position
Well, why isn't the military supporting these guys? I mean, if they're military heroes, the way I would understand it, if they believe, and well, they say they know, but let's say they believe for this conversation, if they know that a foreign country attacked them intentionally, and then our government tried to hide that, this is what their argument is. Thomas Massey's asking for a full investigation. Then why wouldn't the military support these guys? Why would they say you're all liars and at 80 years old you're trying to mislead us with false information when they all claim they have 15 people in a room all saying the same story? It's kind of hard to denounce what they're doing, and they claim they're getting no help from any military organization in the country.
Yeah. So a few things. One, I would welcome an investigation when service members are coming and touting and saying that these things have transpired. I think that's a right of every individual in America. You can take the same principle and apply it to a different topic. I won't go down the rabbit hole, but people talk about believing women when they say things, etc. So we have a judicial process, and we should do an investigation. So I would support an investigation. That's the first thing that I would want to say. And while I may have some experience in the Middle East, granular details on specific situations would be difficult for me not to speculate on. And so if I solely take one side and say this is it, now that doesn't mean I'm disregarding 15 service members whenever it comes to them telling their side of the story. Not at all. In fact, I'd be inclined to more believe them. But I want to be cautious and not jump to conclusions. Now, with that said, investigation facts, I could draw a much more articulate and particular opinion. I can share my principles with you, and you could naturally say, well, this is the conclusion that Brad Patty would come to if he was in the seat, he was a part of the investigation, and he had all the evidence in front of him. That's one aspect. The other aspect is Republicans and Democrats, I think we all understand that there is a degree of politics that is in the United States military. Donald Trump has spoke of it, and we have seen the left sometimes even use it to their advantage. So there is a degree of politics that is in the military. There's tremendous power whenever you're looking at the upper chain of command, et cetera. So that's another factor that you have to take in consideration. And I think, again, I'm just kind of drawing it to my campaign and the legislative branch. That is why it is so imperative to have oversight by Congress, representatives of the people. The executive branch has a tremendous amount of power in order to administer things within the United States military, but again, the chain of command. So we, the people, need to be having oversight, and that's where Congress come in. And that's one of the things that I'd be one of the committees that I would be looking to try to get into is the armed services one, naturally being 25 years in the military. But I know I'm not directly answering your question, and the reason being is because I'd need all the facts.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I think that's just a sober way to look at it. So I'm fine with that. I do want to get you some information because I have a feeling if we have fair elections, I always question that too. But if we have fair elections, you're going to be formidable. I know that I would imagine the Republican establishment is behind Rick Bratton. He's one of their own. He's worked his way through the process. I assume that's who they're backing. But if you have a real conversation and people get to know who you are, I think you're a formidable opponent just by your nature. Having said that, I want to go back to Iraq for just a second.
Yes.
What were the people like in Iraq? I always wonder. It seems like, for somebody who was watching the first Iraq War in 1991, I was 21 years old. And then we go back in there again. George W. Bush says there's weapons of mass destruction. We never found them. To me, it seemed like a sovereign country that we invaded. That was my take on it, right? Because if you don't find their weapons of mass destruction, and that's the reason you went there, yeah, it's kind of a sticky situation for military members like yourself who are going there to protect freedom. How did the people receive you in Iraq? I assume there's language barriers and so forth, because we were told originally that we were going to be greeted as liberators. That turned out not to be exactly true. I'm going to guess there were some people that liked you and some people that were trying to kill you. Overall, what was the culture like? What were the people like? What did you experience inside the boundaries of Iraq?
Sure. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of make a comparison, because many people look to their left and right, see fellow Americans, and it's natural to inject your experience of your own country into others and their culture, etc. But it is tremendously different. One, we're called the land of the brave. And I think that's true. And I'm going to take a moment to get there, but I want to tell a quick story. I was in college. The professor was from another country, and he was saying, "Hey, I was majoring in business," and he said, "You're going to need to know this later." The classic teacher statements. And I said, "Why would I need to know this if I'm just going to have a business? And wouldn't I hire you as my employee?" And he goes, "Talk to me after class." Well, I naturally thought I was in trouble. And what he said, he goes, "Do you know what Americans produce?" He goes, "This country produces nurses. They're known for nurses. This one is medical doctors or IT people, et cetera." He goes, "Americans produce leaders." He goes, "That's what you produce. You're the land of the brave, and you're taught that at a young age." Young American children have such confidence over many other countries, their children. That's one of the biggest things that I noticed in Iraq. Obviously, when you're under Saddam Hussein, you're under tyranny and all of the cultural stresses over there. So that's one thing that I would express, that the individuals that were warmly embracing the armed services, they are very timid. They will not naturally step up and lead themselves. They're willing to work hard and they're willing to follow, but they are not natural leaders. It's just not in the fabric of their culture. And you're correct. There's some that warmly embraced us and some that did not. I don't know if it was a 50-50, but I will say this. We were allowed to have Iraqi nationals come and work on the installation with us, just changing tires, doing manual labor, helping us mechanic soldiers and any other MOS on post. And those individuals, they know they were putting their lives on the line just to sit outside the gate. And guess what? 3 of them died in different occasions that worked underneath of not just me, but my battalion, because they were attacked outside the gate and they were waiting. So there is a portion, I don't think it was the majority, but there was a portion that believed and warmly embraced us. But there was another part that would have been very extreme, which I think most of us affiliate that type of personality and culture with the Middle East, and it is there. There's no negotiations with it, and they are extreme. So I'll give you an example of how extreme. We would hang a sign in the back of our vehicles, and it says, and this was in the beginning, the rules of engagement later changed. I was in the second and third waves, and it said, "If you're within 100 feet, we will kill you," in Arabic, period. Like, we're not messing around. This is a war. Eventually that changed and became softer, and then we gave warning shots and everything else. But so yes, there was 2 different sides.
It doesn't surprise me a bit. It's kind of the way the world is, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way the world works. Okay, let's get into your political positions. I want to get people to get a sense of who you were. I know the military is your life, right? If you're in there for 25 years, that's your life. So I want to get people to get a sense of, what shaped your opinions. A4, you're 4. What about A5? Now, A5, I have not made my mind up on it just yet. My gut feeling is not to trust the state of Missouri. That's my gut feeling. But there's some people in there there's a couple people that are championing the A5 that I have respect for. So I'm going to listen and hear both sides, and I'm going to go all the way down to the wire and try and figure it out. Have you looked into the issue very much? I know it's not something you would vote on in the U.S. House, but is it something you've looked at, and how do you see A5 in Missouri?
Well, here's the first thing. Republican or Democrat, I have a healthy distrust of the United States government. That is an American attribute, and it should never go away. So I'm naturally not going to trust Republicans and Democrats. To include myself, this is why I would say term limits. I shouldn't be up there for 20 years, 30 years, getting tempted with tremendous pressures. right? The person of the strongest character could buckle. So I support term limits. And I know that's not the answer to your question, but I just wanted to start there.
Yep.
Now, income tax. I fully support half of the bill, right? And I think you already know where I'm going with this. The first half, reducing, or I should say eliminating income tax as support. I especially like the stepping down factor. That is the responsible way to do so. But on the back end, I've had debates on and off social media at these events, some of them with past speakers of the House of Missouri. And the term that I keep hearing is net neutral. Now, that's where I have a struggle with net neutral, because there's three entities, right? There's the businesses, there's the elected officials or government, and then there's the common people. Now, who is going to pay the price and who should feel the most comfortable? What is the pecking order? Well, we the people should be the last, right? So I don't like net neutral. If you're going to reduce a tax and then replace it with another tax on the back end, sales tax, and I get it, there's some that they're stopping and saying, hey, well, we won't tax this portion and that portion, which helps sell it. But it doesn't say no sales tax completely. No, they feel that they need to leave that in there in order to make it net neutral. Translation, the government entity is not going to sacrifice any cuts, right? We have no problem just taking a different form of money or a different amount or from a different portion of we the people. And then the businesses will gain, and the higher class will gain from income tax deductions, because 5, 10, 20, 30% of their income is a lot more money than somebody who makes minimum wage.
Right.
So they'll have lots of money that they save. I'm not opposed to the wealthy and the business owner saving money, but because they're going to generate more jobs and income. But what I'm saying is, why doesn't the government look at reducing? And I'll end with this on this analogy or story. We go grocery shopping, right? We're running out of food and we have one box of spaghetti left over and nobody wants to eat it. Now I have a choice, right? I'm not quite at payday. And I've been here in real life, 6 kids, right? I can pull out the credit card and, go get some more groceries and make us all happy. Or I can say, you know what, we got one more day left in the budget. Let's go ahead and do the spaghetti. Now, I don't want to eat the spaghetti, but the responsible thing is to eat the spaghetti. Well, that spaghetti represents this represents the government and fraud. Here's the point. Reduce the budget down. Okay, we have a spending problem. Republicans are even saying it. Secondly, if you need additional money, go after fraud first, right? Go after fraud first. So, and I get it, we're not going to be able to recoup all of the money, but we sure as heck can stop it from going out. This is why you have the executive branch. This is why you have investigators and AI and handcuffs and prosecutors. You have all the power to retain this money that you've gotten us from we the people. But you'd rather just be lazy and go and get it from we the people instead of doing the labor to say, you know what, this money doesn't need to be going outside of the door. And I think J.D. Vance, going state to state, is starting to highlight this. And it's something that I agree with and support. In Missouri, we have over $500 million worth of Medicare fraud. That's just Medicare. And that's just what has been documented. I'm sure if we do a couple more questions, we'll probably find more. But let's go after that money first before we go after we the people. But I'm okay with income tax going down.
Yeah.
Just don't shuffle it for me.
Yeah, I think you're on the same page as many of my friends. They look at it and go, it's not that we don't want to get rid of income tax. We're not arguing whether we should get rid of income tax. It is the methodology to get rid of the income tax, and where is the weight of the money going to come from. And I think you're right. I think the grassroots think it's going to come out of our pockets, and they think that there's too many loopholes in it. There's too many different unknowns. I make the argument to the people of Missouri that have crafted this bill. I think I'll have Bishop Davidson on here before too terribly long. He was the original writer of the bill. And my strongest argument against it is you're giving the government a lot of power to pick winners and losers. If you're going to tell me what businesses are going to be taxed and which ones are going to be exempt and at what rate, boy, that gives a lot of power to the government, because now you can pick winners and losers within industries. And I think that is that's something people aren't talking about as much as I think they should be. But that's just, again, that's just my opinion. If you go to DC, do you have a politician that you see and you go, I like that politician, I kind of align with that person's way of thinking? Is there just somebody in the body of politics, whether now or prior, that you look at the way they handle themselves in the House in DC and say, boy, that's somebody that either shares my opinion or you like the way they went about their business. Is there somebody that is like a mentor type person to you in Washington, DC?
Well, yeah, I don't intimately know them, but I know what you're saying. I watch them, I learn from them, etc. One of them that I would say, I like Marco Rubio. Okay, that's one. Not sure if that's a winner or loser, but I'm an authentic person sharing and answering questions. Number two, I've recently been watching Congressman Gill down in Texas. Incredible, basic, common sense questions that, I mean, it's so basic they're not even Republican Democrat. So I've recently been watching him as well. And then another one, not a politician, but you said that I have a degree of calm, etc. I like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk stays focused and does not. He's an independent mind. He stays focused. He draws his conclusions, and he's willing to change his mind. And we don't have to open up the can of worm again, but he spoke one way of Israel, and later on, as he gained more information, he started to learn more and did different opinions. So you got to have that. You can't have all the answers on day one. Guess what? You're going to continue to gain more information and say, oh my, this is worse. But these are three politicians that I like. If I could put them in a blender and turn myself into that, I would.
I'm a huge Charlie Kirk fan, and you hit it right on the head with, I think our audience will respond to that, because my son went to see the Charlie Kirk Memorial down in Arizona. I had no idea that he was listening to Charlie Kirk at the level that he was. I just didn't know that. Yes. And he's 33, he was 32, 33 years old at the time. And I thought, man, I didn't realize that this Charlie Kirk had so much influence over the way my son was perceiving the world. So when you say he went at Israel one way and then kind of, was, I don't want to say backtracking, but certainly coming from a different angle about Israel later on, where do you stand on Israel? I saw one of our listeners said, tell me where he stands on Israel. That has become a really hot button topic for my show and many around the country. Is what is our relationship with Israel? Should we be combining intelligence operations with Israel? What do you think of what went down in Gaza? Do you believe the stories of the entire civilization being leveled? Just what's your overall take on Israel and its relationship to America?
Okay, so I'll follow the same thought process. I'll start with Charlie Kirk, and then I'll go into Israel. With Charlie Kirk, and it's ironic you told that story about your son. I'm not saying that you are not a boomer. I'm not saying that, but I'm just using two different generations. The boomer generation and the Charlie Kirk generation is what I call it. It is my generations to pull these two together. It's my responsibility to pull these two together. There is a big disconnect, and that's a perfect example. It's just ranging from technology, culture, etc. No blame to be casted. But I feel it's my generation's responsibility, because Charlie Kirk generation they are scarred like we are scarred from September 11th. This is a huge deal to them, and they are leaderless and they are passionate, and they lack the experience and they don't know which direction to go to, and they are our future. And I feel compelled to take that generation and pull them together. And they're a little discouraged because the boomers are so discouraged. Well, boomers have experience, and they've seen the world, and they have good reason to be discouraged and disgruntled. So I don't cast any blame on the boomers as well. But what I have found that is, if I take the Charlie Kirk generation and I speak so passionately about the potential that they have, right? They're not even old enough to run for Congress yet. And I inject that to the boomers. Guess what? The boomers come alive. They start to say, wow, this American dream isn't dead. We do have hope. And I feel that it's incumbent upon my generation to tie the two together. So that's just one thing that I want to go ahead and lay the foundation on, and why I like Charlie Kirk so much and what he started. And I can naturally go into Israel from there if you'd like, but go ahead.
Good. No, I was going to say, I like what you're saying, because we make that argument all the time on this show. The boomers have a different perspective on Israel, whether it's real or imagined. There's a lot of conversation over the last 50 years about Israel being our greatest ally. That's what they were conditioned to believe. And it might be real, might be not. I'm not making a determination on that, but I think that's where it comes from. And then these young people that were following Charlie Kirk, which there were millions of around this country and around the world that were paying attention, they did notice a shift in his opinion of what Israel was doing. especially after October 7th. And so they were like on the, they're like watching this movie, and they're watching Charlie begin to, change his opinion of something he'd been speaking so favorably for. And then all of a sudden he dies, and they're like, well, wait a minute, this story seems a little bit crazy. Is there something going on? Was his voice being silenced? And I think that created an anxiety and an anger. So when you say you need to bridge the two, I agree 100%. I think the boomers are fantastic people. I think the young people are really getting active in politics, and to have that division amongst people that should be on the same page is disturbing. So I agree with you 100%. That needs to be bridged. I'll take that right into Israel. What is your overall take? I'm sure that, 25 years in the military, you have a strong opinion. Let us know what you think.
So when you talk Israel, you talk policy. One of the factors that needs to be addressed is also there is a religious aspect, right? We're a Judeo-Christian nation. I am a born-again Christian. We've heard all different opinions, from blind loyalty due to Christianity and their views, to the complete opposite, where we say, hey, we question everything that Israel does, and there's no value. It's just another nation. I'll share my personal opinion. I'll throw it in there, and it'll be one of many. But as a born again Christian, I do believe in the Bible, and I do believe what it says. And it says that if you go against Israel, right, that's not a good thing. Yeah, basically, it's saying, yep. So you'll be blessed if you're with Israel. Okay, but here's another one. It doesn't say that Israel's perfect. In fact, it predicts that Israel will be by themselves. That's what it says, right? All nations will eventually turn against Israel. So ask yourself, well, why is that? Why would all nations turn against Israel? Is it because they hate God, or is it Israel's behavior? I don't know. I'm not saying I know that. But what I do know is this, that America has their values. And if Israel, you have to leave room for any nation, even Israel, that if they do something wrong, you can't continue that. You can't be a part of it. Now, did they do something wrong? I fall back on investigation, more information. I need to know, because, I don't want to, especially running for office, I don't want to just be foolish and be like, yep, I know exactly what happened, when I don't. I'm in Missouri. I'm not in Congress, and I didn't get to hear the information. I can just express my principles. But I leave room to say, Israel, that was wrong. And I don't support that. And we're one step further away now. And if that continues, we continue to go further and further away. So I'm not a blind loyalist to Israel. With that said,
is the military pro-Israel? I mean, when you're in the military, is it, I just think all these wars that have been started in the Middle East throughout my lifetime. And, I have been somebody that has been very supportive of Israel. I had the same rhetoric as everybody else did. I do question it now. I question it pretty much every day on my show. It's a big portion of my show. Was the military pro-Israel? I'm just thinking of just all of the stories and the alignment with my thinking along with Israel's thinking throughout the years, primarily based on media narratives and so forth, things that I did, as you said, I didn't know about. It was being sold to me, so that's what I believed. And now I'm starting to second guess all that belief system that was built up in me through the years. I've always been curious, because I know Pete Hegseth is very pro-Israel. Was the military in general, the rank and file, were they pretty much pro-Israel? Did you have a sense of it when you were serving?
Keep in mind, I was an enlisted man, not a colonel, in charge of 15,000 people and sitting in a clean tent discussing politics and smoking cigars. So keep that in mind. That is my experience. So as an enlisted man, I have found that the only time they got involved in politics is if their boots were on that soil. That's whenever they're like, all right, I'm in this country. Why am I here? Right? Those types of politics that is going to impact their daily mission, because that's what they're focused on. So all of my experience in 25 years, I never had to work beside, fight against, fight for, or even touch Israel's soil. So I can only speak for myself. I didn't see any opinion left or right, even being out in the field, just kind of relaxing, smoking and joking about all sorts of topics. Israel was one that did not come up.
Gotcha.
Within the enlisted rank and file individuals. So, I know that Israel is a political angst And I'm sure as you get into generals and colonels, Secretary of Defenses, I'm quite sure there's strong opinions at left and right. But my personal experience, I would say I didn't encounter any.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Couple other questions. One of them is when you think about running for office, I got to think that there's probably a driving issue, something that you really think is important, that you're going to go to Washington, D.C. There's got to be an issue. Like for me, it's elections. I think elections are the be all end all. And I think that we run awful elections in this country. We have too many people that are here illegally. Mass mail-in voting drives me absolutely insane. Having machines in your elections, software in our elections makes me crazy. I could go on and on. I think the entire election system is an absolute farce. That would be my issue. So if I was to go off into DC, that's what I'd be focusing on. Was there something that drove you to Washington, DC, or drove you motivated you to go to Washington, DC? Are there an issue, 2 issues, 3 issues? What motivates you to go to Washington, DC and make things happen?
So one is very specific, and that is pro-life. The other 2 are very broad because they encompass a lot of different things: affordability and accountability. So many of which you listed is accountability. All right. I'm infuriated by that. And I think it is probably the driving factor in why people have distrust and have lost faith in our institutions, because they see that there's no accountability. Affordability is one, because we see our national debt, big, long explanation from a national debt, national reserves, spending, politics, etc. And then, of course, pro-life. So I'll start with pro-life and I can work my way down. But pro-life is a very simple topic for me. People will talk about creation and evolution and they do all of this. I just say, hey, you go to the beginning. There's a big bang. Was it God or not? I mean, everything else is a distraction. The same is true whenever you're looking at the discussion of pro-life. You look at the origin, right? You just say, well, hey, what's life? So I'm a foster child. If my mom would have terminated the pregnancy at day 4, I wouldn't be here. My 6 children wouldn't be here. And my future grandchildren would not be here. I actually have 1 grandchild, but, it continues and I wouldn't be here. So when is life? Well, guess it's all going to become life, right? So I say life begins at conception. But, and I'll wrap it up with this. Why do I feel that way? The Declaration of Independence says we get inalienable rights given to us by our Creator, and I've said that before. And it lists a few: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, liberty, we had a civil war about, right? Slavery. And in fact, Abraham Lincoln and Douglas were having a debate, and there's new states coming, and it said, hey, should the states be a slave state or not? And how are we going to decide this? Well, the Democrats were saying, guess what we should do? We should let the states vote.
That's right.
On liberty for human beings. The government doesn't give that authority. That's what Abraham Lincoln was arguing. So in our Constitution says liberties to all people.
That's right.
And we're not going to vote on it. Well, the same is true with life. So while I did celebrate that the Supreme Court handed it down to the states, I immediately thought of Abraham Lincoln and Douglas, and that this isn't a right that we vote on. This is now I get it. Formality. We're going to need to vote in order to solve this problem. But this is a right given to everyone. I wouldn't be here if I was aborted. Period. It's really that simple. I don't care if it's day 4, day 6, day 12. So that is something that is very passionate to me, and I think it is the very fabric of our nation. If you're not alive, you're not a citizen.
Brad, are you for or against A3? Are you following that topic in the state of Missouri? It's not something you would vote on in the U.S. House, but is it something you're following? And do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I'm for it. And this is why I would say, okay, look how slavery was solved, right? In the beginning, there was slavery. And then we had a civil war. Then they could have 1/3 vote. Then this. Then we have Martin Luther King. This is, unfortunately, to reinstate our inalienable rights, it is a generational torch passing process. It is. If I could get everybody to go ahead and do a constitutional amendment and say that there's no abortions, I would do that. That's not going to happen, right? Just like our founding fathers, right? Madison and others were saying, hey, guess what? John Adams never owned a slave. He wanted all slavery to be banned. He didn't get it. So you got to deal with the reality. Now, the truth and the reality is two different things. So I would continue to draw it closer and closer.
Gotcha.
So to answer your question, yes, I support Amendment 3.
What about the surveillance state? So when I was with Thomas Massie, one of the things, there's certain things that drive my show. I stay connected to certain issues, and I don't get off onto Fox News or CNN narratives. I just think most of the time they're just BS. What is your take on the surveillance state that is being developed in this country? Let me just walk you through some things that we talk about here often. The 702 FISA warrants, warrantless searches on American citizens. Okay, this comes after the Patriot Act. This comes after 9/11. Now they want to put flock safety cameras on every corner in America. They're building them by the bazillions everywhere that we look. Now they want AI data centers to store that information so they can store where your license plates go. They can make a profile of you. Every keystroke on your computer or your phone can be stored and held so that a central source can bring it out whenever they want to. You have the kill switches in the cars. You also have the borders open through many administrations. Maybe they're closed now. Maybe they're not. I'm not down there. But the bottom line is, it certainly seems to me like we create problems in this country, and then in order to fix it, we take away rights of American citizens, and the surveillance state is making me absolutely insane. I see all of these things coming into our future, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of attention to it, except from the advocates that are pushing back against it. It doesn't seem like the body of politics in Missouri or around the country really are recognizing what's happening here. And it could be just, I'm conspiratorial. I see these things happening and going, wait a minute, when they lock the keys to all of this stuff, we're going to be in a world of hurt, because you're going to have your entire life surveilled by a government source, or one of these private companies that are really government offshoots, in my opinion. What do you think about the surveillance state? Is it something you'd want to stop? Do you think it's necessary? How do you see it?
Well, I think
You don't have to share my opinion, Brad. I'm telling you don't have to share my opinion. I'm just saying, where do you come from?
Yeah, I think the final destination on extreme surveillance that you're alluding to, the final destination is one greedy, powerful person is going to try to garnish it all and be in charge of everything. I mean, I don't need a high level of education to figure that out. Okay, there's billions of people, and somebody's going to try to be king of the hill. I played it as a kid. Sometimes I won, sometimes I didn't, but I guarantee you, there's somebody who wants to be king of the hill. So let's stop setting the table for king of the hill. That's the short version that I would say. I'll make another analogy. As a medical doctor, they say, you're going to go ahead and give medicine to someone. There's always a negative recourse, right? Tylenol is not good for your liver, but it solves the problem, right? Chemotherapy, by the way, I'm a cancer survivor myself, but chemotherapy damages things, but it's also going to cure you. So it's the lesser of two evils. Well, that is the decision that continues to be placed in front of the American people in the civilian world and the political world. So Google, good luck reading their disclaimers, right? But we have a Gmail account, okay?
Exactly.
So we make the trade-off. So I think we're being, the fabric of American society and the world society is that they're willing to make that trade-off. Should they? Probably not. Are we? Yes. On the political side of the house, I think I just stand with a very basic principle that anytime that the government is trying to break into citizens' rights when it comes to surveillance, that shouldn't happen. So there are very few exceptions. I'm going to sit here and say, all right, is this a matter of national security? And how can it be reduced to just a few individuals that were surveilling, et cetera, right? So, hey, we're going to go ahead and surveil everyone so that we can say, just in case something bad happens.
Right.
Well, I disagree with that. We're going to surveil 3 people who have credible claims. I support that, because if they go ahead and drop a nuclear bomb on us, that affects everyone. The entire principle and focus is on we the people. Why? I'm a subordinate. I'm a representative. That's why I'm sent here. It's not what we can gain and more power and make it easier and more convenient for us. Drawing back on the daggone spaghetti, right? The principle is to make it more difficult on government. Look at Amazon and customer service. Amazon makes it more difficult on themselves for their customers. So
I like
a couple analogies there.
I think I understand where you're coming from, and I'm kind of at the same place. The world will pass us up if we don't get involved. I do recognize that, and that could take 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, doesn't matter. But ultimately, technology is going to happen. The cat's out of the bag. what I say to my politicians that will have anything to, if they'll have a conversation with me, is where are the safeguards? Give me the safeguards. Tell me what you guys can and can't do. And if you do it, what is the penalty to you? This is when you said accountability, our audience, when I was in the radio, both when I was at News Talk and Real Talk, and even now, accountability is the word that we seem to, that we focus on. It doesn't seem like there's any accountability for the government. It just doesn't seem like there's any accountability. I could tell you so many bills in the state of Missouri that we were talking about with people that read the language, and they said, well, these are unconstitutional bills. They're going to pass the go and fight for it over and over and over again, would pass the same bills that we said were unconstitutional. Then they'd be labeled unconstitutional, but the citizens don't remember because they're busy and they got their whole lives going on. I'm like, why are we playing games with government in the state of Missouri when you're passing unconstitutional bills? You know that that these things are going to get overturned in court, but you want to pass them for political expediency and to get the headlines that you did something fantastic. And it drives me crazy. There's no accountability for it. I would think that if you pass it, if you vote, here's the way I would look at it. This is what should happen if we had a society that was looking out for its people. If you vote yes on a bill that goes to the Supreme Court and is voted unconstitutional in the state of Missouri, you should have to resign your position, because you're supposed to uphold the Constitution. That is your sole duty. That's it. You're supposed to be protecting me from you. That's why you go to office for. You're protecting me from you getting out of control. If you are passing bills that we are talking about on radio, I'm not an attorney. I know what multi-subject means, though. And if I can tell you that this bill is multi-subject and you pass it anyway because you want to get the headlines, and then it gets overturned in court, but everybody forgets, to me, you're not a representative of the people. Again, this unconstitutional here, and yet we continue to pass them and nobody's paying attention to it. Last question. That was just a filibuster. I don't need you to answer that one yet. Last question for you is elections, Brad, and then I'm gonna let you go on about your day. How do you feel about the elections? Here, I'll just give you, that's something that I follow like a crazy person. And I mean it. I mean, I know everything about what went down with the elections. Of Ohio, because the Democrats had control of the machines, right? Then you go fast forward to 2020 and Donald Trump, he believes that he had the election stolen from him. You had Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. They bounced around to all of the swing states, and they made the argument that electronic voting systems were in part to play with the overturn of the elections. We have Dr. Frank on the show just recently. We did a live stream with him for 3 hours. Into the system so that you can change the outcome of elections, talked about mail-in ballots, talked about same-day voting, talked about all of that stuff. And I looked at it and I went, well, there's like 90 different ways to change the outcome of an election. Why wouldn't the Democrats or the Republicans or both try to shore up the elections? And I'm telling you, as a matter of certainty, Brad, nothing happens. I mean, I have worked my tail off trying to get information to both the Democrats and the Republicans in the state of Missouri, and they just don't, they just flat don't care, which does, I don't understand it. Do you have an opinion on it? Do you think this is all just a much? I lose you?
It is. It has been going in and out, but I'm here now.
I can hear you. Go ahead. Did you hear me?
Okay, good deal. Well, one, I wanted to just say accountability. It is tough to get all the members of Congress or half of them to go on your side and then get something done. But one of the authorities that is rarely used, and I will get to your question, my apologies, but is criminal referrals. Department, and if you're a congressman, you're sitting there and you see crime in your questioning, you send it to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice may not do anything with it. Well, guess what? We can continue to stack it on top of the Department of Justice. So one criminal referral after another, and until it builds up pressure. Congress representatives are not doing this in large amounts than they need to in order to force accountability. That's where you then would utilize the media, the fourth branch of government, to highlight the stacks of criminal referrals by a representative to eventually force accountability. I think this is a mechanism in which we can do so and be successful at it. But your question was about voting, and we're looking at the integrity of it. So again, I'll elaborate on that. But the Supreme Court just ruled, and I disagree with them. We need to start with citizenship. So I give an example. I'm in the military. I have a child, and we give birth in Germany. Is that child a U.S. citizen? Yes. Why? Because I'm going to pass down allegiance and assimilation to my child and culture. That's why. So the parent is giving it to them. Right. And that's far more important. That is the fabric of being an American citizen, not the soil that you're born on. Right. It's the passing of the American culture down from the parents. The other aspect is not being legal and giving birth on American soil. Well, there's nothing magical about the location that you're born. We all say America is an idea anyways, and it's being passed down by parents. So I adamantly disagree, and I would be willing to go to Congress and fight this. And I'm sure there's many other Republicans as well, that the legislative branch can push back on the Supreme Court ruling and say, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and try to fix this. How long will that take? Is it a generational fight? No one knows, but you get in and you start fighting. That's the direction in which I want to start pulling the wagon. Now, whenever you get into machines, voting, counting, etc., again, I don't want to be oversimplistic, but government is not an extremely sexy organization. It's very simple. We've done paper ballots all these years, and we've counted them, and we do it on the day of election, and that's it. And it's very simple, and it's worked. It's sustained. And in fact, our democratic republic has grown in strength under that process. Why change it?
Right.
I see no reason to change it. And here's another one that I hear when people get in debates. They use these types of lines, but where was the errors in the past? Right? We've built our country on this, and I think just simply having paper ballots is the way to go. You have observers of both parties observing. There's a very simple. The more complexities we add to this, the more avenues that individuals, politicians, lawyers can get in and just overcomplicate it and get their way. And then self-motivation starts to come in, and that's called corruption. And I think we just need to keep it solid and simple.
I agree 100%. I always say the elections, if I can't explain the election system to an 8-year-old, then it's too complicated, because really it's just somebody vote, somebody counts it, we tally them up, we make a decision. But now you have legions of papers and all kinds of
by design.
By design, I agree. That's what I was going to say. It's by design it's to make it complicated. So you just go, I don't really understand the election system, but it's America. We're going to run clean elections in America, which you can debate that all day long. Mr. Patty, I thank you very much for spending the time with us. I was going to say one more thing. Would you be in favor of a national holiday to run our elections? Is that something you would get behind if we start putting forth some pressure on the federal government to give us a national holiday so that we can vote and we can have people vote and we can make it I always say the most patriotic thing you can do is to understand what's going on in your government and determine the fate of your generation and future generations. That comes from voting in a constitutional republic. Yeah, we make all these. We'll have a day off for anything except for voting. I don't really. Today, it's crazy. Did I lose you, Brad?
I'm back. To answer the question, yes, I would support it. I know that the other side would still be able to say, hey, that doesn't solve everything. And, what about somebody who's sick in the hospital, et cetera? And we can have those discussions. But in short, yes, I would support that. So if I can, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We have a little bit of a delay. Go ahead and say what you got to say. I apologize.
No problem. Well, I was just, if you give me an opportunity to do a closing statement, that would be great. But that was the answer to my question.
No, do your closing statement, and then where people can find you.
Sure. So the biggest thing that I want to emphasize is that we need character in Washington, D.C., authentic character. Okay. And all the candidates that I'm going against do not live in the district. Now, some are, more egregious scenarios, such as Rick Bratton, who is voted for the map, lives outside of it, and is now running for this district. We've had individuals that have ran multiple times, et cetera. But what I want to say is that we need character, and it's, again, very simple. You should live in the district. That is something that I want to make sure that I express. And I said pro-life was a big topic for me, but affordability and accountability. I've talked about income taxes. I talked about Department of Justice and criminal referrals. These are actions that I can take individually, and I can definitely garnish motivation behind. So I'm just asking for your vote because I'm authentic and real. Literally 12 months ago, I had boots on. I didn't go to Republican meetings or anything. I am learning as I go these past 12 months about the political apparatus, but I'm just staying true to my principles. And I believe that that is what is going to get across to the voters. So if you want to learn more about me, you're looking at bradpatty.com. I also have been answering questions and generating videos on Facebook, and then I've been spreading them out to other social media sites as well. So feel free to go ahead to Brad Patty for Congress. You can see some of the answers to my questions, different interviews that I've had, and I'm going to continue to build upon this. And a fun fact, when you get your congressional ballot for the primary, I will be #1. I'll be at the top of the list. So you don't even have to go down and look at the other names. I'll be right there.
Right. And it's Brad, Patty, as you said, bradpatty.com. And I agree with you, Brad. It's the last thing I'll say too, because we'll have to end it here. But I think character is a big deal. When I look at things, I always tell people I cannot get into a knockdown, drag out fight over every issue. There are really on life experience. I don't want to be in a war with everybody who sees the world differently than me. But I certainly want to get my point across to people. I try to find good character people because, as you said, you're learning. You're 12 months into learning the political agenda in the state. Life where I believe one thing, and then later on in life I believe another. So we all grow as we get a little bit older. But I think if you have good character people that don't make decisions for money, they don't make decisions because it's a go along to get along situation. You don't make decisions based because you want to be a part of a certain clique or a certain group, and you're willing to take the heat if you make a decision that sometimes isn't popular, but in your heart you know it's the right decision. I think that is a big not a lot of leaders out there in the world. You need more leaders in Congress. Appreciate you joining us. Brad Patty, everybody. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
You got it, brother. Have a great day. All right, everybody. That is Brad Patty. He is running against, I think his biggest opponent is going to be Rick Bratton. I think Rick Bratton is the one that the people of Missouri know. I think he will be the darling of the Republican Party. I think that's probably where they'll throw their money when it's all said and done. But I like Brad Patty. I like him as a person. You got to have conversations with people that disagree with us and hopefully bring them into our fold. Just want to answer a couple things here. Let's see here. Papa Bill's my buddy. The Electoral College is there because if you have a straight democracy, as soon as you get a +1 vote, you'll have the tyranny of the majority. You'll have the tyranny of the majority. Areas and people from different walks of life to have a say-so in their government. If you don't do it that way, if you have a president who's running for office, that person just may go to Manhattan, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, Texas, and Miami. And if they can get the voters in those areas who are all, city areas to back them, then they don't have to worry about farmers. In the outcome of their government. If you take that away from them, then you're going to get the tyranny of. You want everybody to have a voice in their government, and you want the same weight of a person in Kansas who's growing corn to have the same weight as somebody who's working for NASA in Florida. But that's the reasoning behind the Electoral College, in my opinion. All right. I think that's all I got for you today. Let me give you where I want to go to lunch today. If you're out in the Washington, Missouri area, it is Moe's Pizza, a landmark in Washington, Missouri at the corner of Grand and 5th Street. If you have any kind of get-together, Moe's Pizza is the place for you. Delicious pizza and salad bar, great chicken wings, delicious sandwiches, and the best ice cream you've ever had in your life. Family environment, great people. They do a lot area, birthday parties, anniversaries, Bible studies, political meetings, doesn't matter. Any kind of get together, they have banquet space available for you. They'll treat you like family when you go in there. You'll walk in as a customer, you'll leave as a friend. It is Moe's Pizza. I said, "What's going on with Moe's Pizza?" He said, "Rob, God owns the place. I just work here." That is Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri. Great advertisers for us, great sponsors of good governance. That is Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri. All right. Let me take a look here very quickly to see if I have anything on my agenda that I wanted to talk about before we call this a day. Let me see here. I did. This is the Denny. We're talking about elections. I got one more clip I wanted to play. And this is Denny Hoskins. A lot of conversation going on about Denny Hoskins turning over information to the feds. I like this particular guy. I don't know what the audience thinks of Mark Maxwell, but he's a local reporter, and I think he's fair. I try to be as fair as I can. Everybody knows my opinions on certain things. And do I get the only reason I get riled up, if you're a daily listener of the show, and the reason I lose my temper at times is when I see what I think, when I see politicians gaslighting me, when I see politicians lying to my face, when I see politicians that tell me one thing and do another, I sometimes lose my temper a little bit on that because I think we're at a time now in society where that can't continue on. We're at a time in society where technology, consolidation of power, big corporate interest are beginning to outweigh the sum total of our society. That's what I believe is happening. And it doesn't mean that we're going to have to crawl up in a ball. And I tell people that when they say that I'm too negative. I'm not negative at all. I'm doing this because I'm positive, and I think we're going to be able to change the outcome. Right? But the reason I get worked up and the reason I may not be as partial as I should be, or impartial as I should be, I guess I should say, is because I get very frustrated with people that use government for their own benefit. Maybe we'll go have a beer together. We might be cordial when we see each other. But if I think you're using government for your own better interest, I generally don't like you very much. I pray for you. In Missouri, and he made a little video about Denny Hoskins lately. And I like Denny. I endorse Denny. I'm concerned about Missouri elections. Denny Hoskins, according to Mark Maxwell, said he was not going to give information to the federal government and then did. Here's how he reported it. And I'd be curious your position on Secretary of State in Missouri, Denny Hoskins. Let me get it going here.
Committee and drew a big bright red. In February, Denny Hoskins sat in front of a House committee and drew a big bright red line. He said Missourians' private information, the Secretary of State said, would not go to Washington, not without a court order. He repeated himself over again. But last month, that line got a little shakier. Hoskins quietly sent the driver's license numbers and the birth years of Missouri voters to the federal Justice Department without a court order, all for a national fraud database a judge has since declared unlawful. Hoskins blames lawmakers. He says they wouldn't give him the subpoena power he wanted. The voters whose data he shipped over to D.C. were not asked. Hoskins says his office found 1,000 people in voter registration lists that his office could not confirm were American citizens. His press release did not allege any of those people ever cast a ballot, which would be against the law. In fact,
that is Mark Maxwell, and I got to get Denny. Maybe we'll get Denny on the upon. I don't know what is cutting out on this screen today. It's so bizarre. I think he wants good elections, and I just don't know that he's getting a lot of support from the people and or the Republican Party in the state of Missouri, but we have to get elections figured out. Hopefully Isaiah will be back tomorrow. I'm putting this thing on together. A little bit difficult now that I'm out of the rhythm without having Isaiah here. Pray for him and his, I think it's his grandmother, his wife's grandmother that is in the hospital. So pray for her if you don't mind. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on the Rob Carter Show. Have a great day, everybody.